Chapter 682. In the quiet training chamber, because of her uncle's gloomy expression, the air seemed to freeze. But the young girl's face was still filled with stubbornness. Facing his oppressive gaze, she didn't shrink back at all. Finally, a sigh echoed out from the chamber. Mu Xian, you must promise me that you will ensure your own safety first. The pressure of the family's prosperity should not be borne by you. The young girl was pleasantly surprised. Thank you, uncle. Don't worry. The strength of the treasure hunting team this time is very strong, and several of them are very famous young experts of the sect. It wasn't easy for me to get a spot. Uncle, you're too kind. Her sparkling eyes were filled with joy and excitement. Mutong took off the dark blue bracelet on his wrist. It was unknown what material it was made from, but its surface shined with starlight. Wear this bracelet. You're not allowed to refuse. Mu Xian stuck out her tongue and obediently received it. She wore it on her wrist and immediately felt her mind clear and her body become much lighter. Mutong waved his hand. Go. Remember to be careful and don't try to be brave. Moments later, beneath a pavilion outside the sect, the treasure hunting team gathered. Led by a cold-faced youth, they rode a flying boat-like magic tool and soared into the skies. After entering deep into the mountain range, they encountered several dangers. One of them was a giant silver eagle that circled around the ant colony for a long time. Finally, it seemed to retreat in fear. This caused Qin Yu to correct his previous guesses. This was just an ordinary mountain range, and yet there were so many powerful monster beasts. The cultivation level of this world was likely higher than he had imagined. A shadow covered Qin Yu's heart. If he wanted to obtain the blood flame fruit, it clearly wouldn't be simple. He took a deep breath and suppressed the restlessness in his heart. Then, he compared the images he obtained from the beehive to the mountain valley. It should be nearby. After the ant colony circled around for a moment, a black mountain peak appeared in his line of sight. Qin Yu's eyes brightened, and he ordered the ant colony to change directions. Soon, a mountain valley covered in thick fog appeared. Looking around, he determined that this was the mountain valley where the blood flame fruit trees grew. Qin Yu carefully looked around. The terrain here wasn't too low, and the appearance of the fog was strange. He thought back to what the queen bee had said about a natural array formation here. After a moment of thought, he gave up on passing through the fog. With a thought, the ant colony quickly landed and placed Qin Yu and Zhu Dagong on the ground. But at this time, Qin Yu's complexion changed. A shallow mark appeared, as if it had been cut by a sharp weapon. It came from the fog of the mountain valley. Small groups of purple-back blue-wing ants flew out. They were like Qin Yu's eyes. After submerging into the fog, they soon discovered the traces of battle. Qin Yu's complexion darkened. Someone had entered the mountain valley a step ahead of him. However, these battle scars were new, and there were still energy fluctuations lingering in the air that had yet to completely dissipate. His eyes flashed, and his eyebrows relaxed. Perhaps this wasn't a bad thing at all. He had the small swarm of purple-back blue-wing ants explore the way ahead. Then, he kicked Zhu Dagong and lightly stepped into the mountain valley. Zhu Dagong's ability to predict danger was naturally put to use at this time. His entire body shivered as he followed behind Qin Yu. As he looked at the increasingly horrifying battle marks on the ground, as well as the massive number of monster beast corpses that had been cut to pieces, the smell of blood assailed his nostrils. He could have lived a peaceful life, and yet he had to run to such a dangerous place. What a sin! If he had a choice, he would have turned tail and run. Because of his talent, in Zhu Dagong's perception, this mountain valley was like the gaping maw of a monster. This place was far too terrifying, especially the depths of the mountain valley. There was absolutely something terrifying there. No, I have to find a way to make Qin Yu leave here. As a loyal king of the pig race, he had to be responsible for the master he believed in. As Zhu Dagong was preparing an excuse, Qin Yu seemed to know what was going to happen. His eyes fell on him, and his voice was low and light, but it made Zhu Dagong feel as if he had fallen into an icy lake. There's no need to speak any nonsense. If we can't obtain the blood flame fruit this time, then you can stay here and be buried with old Master Zhou. Zhu Dagong shivered. He was sure that Qin Yu's eyes and tone weren't joking. This fellow really could do it. Zhu Dagong desperately shook his head and tossed his thoughts into the depths of hell. He gave Qin Yu a firm and fearless look, and then twisted his fat butt and rushed forwards. Inwardly, tears streamed down his cheeks. Heavens, what sin did I commit in my past life? Why is a pig's life so difficult? Just as he took several steps, Zhu Dagong came to a sudden stop. His small round eyes stared at the fog in front of him. There was movement. Qin Yu stopped in the middle of the swarm of ants. Although he didn't move forwards, he could see the purple-backed blue-wing ants leading the way, and he already knew what was happening. Over a dozen young cultivators were gathered together, desperately activating a withered, twig-like treasure. It emitted a bright green light that was shaped like an upside-down bowl, protecting everyone within. The surrounding fog violently tumbled, and strange figures of strange monsters and beasts appeared. They were all condensed from fog and crazily attacked the green light. They were like small boats floating on the sea in a storm, ready to capsize at any moment. Senior Apprentice Brother Chi. This array formation is naturally condensed by the world, and its strength is endless. If we can't break out of this encirclement, sooner or later our strength will be exhausted. At that time, the female cultivator didn't finish speaking, but her deathly pale complexion was enough to show her fear. The one called Senior Apprentice Brother Chi was a handsome young cultivator. Even in this current situation, his expression remained calm. I have a secret treasure that can temporarily tear through space and break out of this array formation. All of you help me block it. I need to make preparations. As if they had obtained some kind of information from these words, the restless crowd all revealed a trace of relief at the same time. Mu Xian looked at her senior apprentice Brother Qi, Shantian, who was able to calm everyone with just a few words, and a look of admiration appeared in her eyes. He was truly worthy of being a top 20 master in the sect. When would she be able to possess senior apprentice Brother Chi's strength? As the young girl was lost in her thoughts and envy, she didn't notice that her two close senior apprentice sisters had quietly distanced themselves from her. Shua. Qi Xingtian's eyes flashed open. He lifted a hand and pointed out a finger. A brilliant golden light gushed out from his fingertip. As he did this, his complexion paled. Mu Xian froze. Her eyes widened with disbelief. The golden light drilled into her body, and she couldn't move at all. Junior apprentice Sister Mu, I'm sorry. If we are lucky enough to return to the sect, we will ask the sect to reward you for your selfless sacrifice. Qi Xingtian's tone was faint. He lifted a hand and waved it in front of him. A faint black light flashed, and a crack appeared in space. Let's go. Whoosh, whoosh, everyone flew in. Even the two senior apprentice sisters that had called Mu Xian sisters yesterday didn't spare her a single glance. The spatial crack closed. Only Mu Xian was left in the deep green light. The supply of magic power to her rapidly decreased, and the light emitted by the withered branch rapidly dimmed. So I was only a chess piece that was chosen ahead of time, a chess piece that could be abandoned at any time. Uncle, I'm sorry, I didn't listen to you. Mu Xian's eyes were filled with fear and regret. After the purple-backed blue-wing ants completed a breakthrough, although their strength wasn't heaven-defying, they still possessed the aura of a rare monster ancestor. Through their eyes, Qin, you could see things that the naked eye couldn't see. For instance, that formidable heaven and earth array formation. In truth, it would erupt with different killing strengths depending on the strength of the intruder. And more importantly, after the massive consumption of energy just now, the strength that the array formation had accumulated would soon be exhausted. With the support of the strength poured into her body, she should be able to safely cross it. What a lucky little girl. Qin, Yu whispered to himself. He looked deeper into the mountain valley. But there are some people who aren't so lucky. He avoided the range of the natural array formation and continued deeper into the valley. Of course, the premise of all of this was that the array formation had already been triggered. Otherwise, even the purple-back blue-wing ants wouldn't have been able to sense the range of the array formation. A violent explosion pierced through the fog, accompanied by panic screams and strange roars. The purple-back blue-wing ants that were scouting the way only had time to glance around and see what was happening deep in the mountain valley before they were swept away by the blood-red tentacles, instantly losing all signs of life. Qin Yu's complexion changed. He hurriedly brought the ant swarm to retreat. Luckily, the blood-red tentacles didn't chase after them, instead continuing to attack the group of cultivators that had intruded into its territory. Although he felt a little more at ease, the scene just now was branded into his mind. The fog in the air had strangely vanished, and a crimson fruit tree was quietly growing on the edge of a cliff. 3 bright red fruits hung from its branches. However, at this moment, the ground that was covered in bones was torn apart by a powerful force. Countless blood-colored tentacles wildly danced in the air, carrying with them a terrifying and sharp aura. One of the young cultivators was directly torn to shreds, causing his blood and organs to scatter in the air. Qin Yu wasn't sure what these blood-red tentacles were, but there was no doubt that they were terrifying and formidable. Even if the purple-back blue-wing ants were to come out in full force, they still wouldn't have any chance of victory against them. He suddenly rejoiced in his heart. Luckily, there was a group of ruthless and powerful cultivators in front of him that had attracted the firepower. Otherwise, the one facing the crazy attacks of the blood-red tentacles would have been him. Although it was a joyful matter to witness the death of an evil perpetrator, Qin Yu really couldn't bring himself to be happy at this time. Such a terrifying and formidable blood-red tentacle was nearly impossible to defeat. Even if all of these people died here, it wouldn't change the fact that he couldn't obtain the blood flame fruit. Without the blood flame fruit, old Master Zhou would die without a doubt. Could he only watch helplessly on as this honorable and amiable elder, the benefactor that saved his life, died? According to common sense, after determining that he couldn't obtain the blood flame fruit, in order to avoid being drawn into the danger, Qin Yu should have left while these cultivators were struggling on the verge of death. The further he went, the better. But after a long time, Qin Yu decided to stay. Perhaps it was stupid, but as long as he didn't leave, there might be a chance. Qin Yu was well aware that if he didn't do his best to save old Master Zhou, he would regret it for the rest of his life. It might even form a knot in his heart that would affect his future cultivation. I'll gamble one more time. Chapter 683. In the deepest depths of the mountain valley, shrouded in fog, the young masters that had abandoned their companions fell into chaos and fear. They struggled to withstand the crazy lashing of the blood-red tentacles. Several of the weaker ones had already been torn apart on the spot. They could only watch helplessly as their companions were turned into pieces of flesh and blood that fell to the ground, rapidly decaying and being absorbed. In the blink of an eye, all that was left over was white bones. The invisible psychological pressure created by this was enough to cause one to collapse. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. A female cultivator cried out in tears. Her beautiful face was smeared with tears, no longer as lovely as before. Her magic power was about to be exhausted. With a loud cracking sound, the shimmering barrier of light around her was directly shattered. With a desperate scream, this graceful female cultivator was swept away by the blood-red tentacles. Unfortunately, it didn't possess the aesthetic standards of humans. Towards such a beautiful woman, it didn't have the slightest bit of pity. There was a scalp-numbing sound of flesh and bone breaking apart. The beautiful woman turned into white bones as her flesh and blood melted away and was cleanly absorbed. Senior apprentice Brother Qi, let's hurry and leave this place, otherwise we will all die here. Qi Shengtian paled. Okay, I will immediately tear open space. The remaining cultivators were overjoyed. They gathered together, waiting for the space crack to appear so they could immediately escape inside. But even at this time, there were still many people that looked at the deepest depths of the mountain valley, at the blood flame fruit tree. All sorts of thoughts were running through their minds. They had originally thought that coming to this mountain valley to search for treasures was just an ordinary adventure, but they never imagined that there would be such precious treasures hidden here. 3 blood flame fruits. Even if it was just this bit of information, it would still be enough to sell for a great price. Qi Shengtan lowered his head, as if gathering the strength to tear open space. As he saw everyone's reactions, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Shwa! A black light appeared once more. But what it tore through wasn't space, but ring-shaped as it smashed into the backs of the gathered cultivators. Caught off guard, the protective light around their bodies collapsed. The cultivators that were sent flying backwards spat out great mouthfuls of blood. Senior apprentice Brother Qi. Angry screams were mixed with fear and disbelief. Qi Shengtian was expressionless. I'm sorry, but the blood flame fruit tree can only be mine. So, junior apprentice brothers and sisters, I ask that you all die. The tentacle would not be surprised, nor would it care about the so-called elegance. There was no reason for it to let go of the food that was delivered to its doorstep. Screams of despair rang out one after another, followed by the sound of flesh being torn to pieces. Soon, the valley returned to silence. There were only the deathly white bones on the ground and Qi Shengtian, who was quietly standing there. The blood-colored tentacles intertwined in the air and actually formed a human shape. A pair of empty eye sockets stared at him. However, for some unknown reason, the blood-colored tentacles did not attack. It was as if they could sense some sort of threat from the cultivator in front of them. Lightly laughing, Qi Shengtian said calmly, "Shouldn't you be thanking me? Because of me, you can enjoy so much fresh blood that is filled with power." The blood-red figure opened its mouth, and sharp syllables erupted. It was like an iron all-piercing through one's marrow and soul, causing space to tremble. Qi Shengtian's face became even paler, but his eyes were incomparably bright, and his demeanor became even more relaxed. "Are you afraid? Of course, you should be afraid of me, who has a powerful bloodline. You will die today, but it is also your lucky day, because in this world, no one has truly witnessed the bloodline power that I possess. You can call it annihilation." A layer of black light appeared, covering Qi Shengtian. He seemed to fuse into it. Then, darkness suddenly erupted. Like a raging flood, it swept out in all directions. Its speed was 10 times faster than lightning, 100 times faster. There was simply no chance to dodge. The blood-red figure was submerged in the darkness. From within, its angry and tyrannical roars echoed out. Terrifying rumbling sounds continued to spread out, but the darkness seemed to possess the strength to annihilate all. After the sound spread out, it became incomparably weak. Even its aura was like a gentle breeze, unable to be detected by the outside world. Gradually, the movements in the darkness became smaller and smaller until they completely disappeared. After another moment, it retreated like a tide, condensing into Qi Shengtian's voice once more. His aura was incomparably weak, and his entire body was soaked with sweat. He looked as if he had just been fished out of the water. But Qi Shengtian's face was full of smiles. Although he had forcefully erupted with his bloodline that had yet to fully awaken, there would be a backlash. Compared to the harvests of the blood flame fruit trees, all of this was worth it. Now it was all his. Qi Shengtian's feet moved, and he rushed deep into the mountain valley. But at this time, there was a humming sound behind him. His eyes widened, and an icy chill rose up in his heart. But Qi Shengtian didn't stop. He didn't even turn his head to look. Instead, he erupted with the last of his strength and crazily rushed towards the blood flame fruit trees. No matter what accident occurred, as long as he obtained the blood flame fruit, he would be able to take the initiative. You are very smart, ruthless, and ruthless enough. If you have enough time, you will definitely become a great and awe-inspiring figure. But I must apologize. As you said before, this blood flame fruit tree can only be mine. So, I thank you for your previous efforts. I also ask that you go underground and accompany your fellow disciples who haven't yet gone far on the road to the Yellow Springs. A cold voice pierced through Qi Shengtian's heart like a cold winter wind. Qi Shengtian suddenly discovered that his body had become powerless, and he couldn't help but fly high into the air. His final gaze fell on a black-robed youth that walked out from the fog. There's no aura. Qi Shangtian, actually died at the hands of an ordinary person. Qin Yu's consciousness fell into darkness. Qin Yu's eyes were faint. He swept his eyes over Qi Shangtian's corpse and then turned his attention to the blood-flame fruit trees. He sighed with joy. He originally thought that the process of obtaining them would be extremely difficult, but it was unexpectedly simple. Perhaps the heavens saw that he was too unlucky and adjusted his luck. Qin Yu dispelled these absurd thoughts from his heart. He stepped on the pig that was crazily trying to rush towards the blood-flame fruit trees and kicked it away. Since this fellow was so impatient, there shouldn't be any danger. But it was always better to be cautious. Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. The ant swarm split off and picked all 3 blood-flame fruits. The fruit was separated from the tree. This fruit tree that was like a flame and exuded exuberant vitality withered in the blink of an eye. A gust of wind blew past, directly turning it into powder. Qin Yu felt this was a pity. He extinguished any thoughts of moving the blood-flame fruit trees away and continuing to cultivate them in the future. But soon, as he looked at the 3 blood-flame fruits in front of him, Qin Yu's mood brightened. After a simple appraisal, he determined that they were indeed supreme treasures used to nourish the mortal body. He couldn't help but tightly clench his fists. Zhu Dagon, listen up. If you dare to touch these 3 fruits, I'll skin you alive and light you on a lantern. Saving the old man was more important. Now wasn't the time to swallow them. After a stern warning, he placed the blood-flame fruits into a separate space. This strange space had a formidable effect. It was similar to a sealed jade box that could lock in the blood-flame fruits so that they didn't lose their potency. The greatest sorrow in the world was that good things were in one's pocket, but one didn't even have the qualifications to look at them. A pig's life was so difficult. The indignant pig Dagong had nowhere to vent his anger. He threw himself over to Qi Shengtian's corpse and looted him clean. When all that was left was his underpants, he reluctantly stopped, feeling a bit better. Qin Yu allowed this fellow to do as he pleased. It was hard for him to have any thoughts of rejoicing over Qi Shengtian. Just as he was about to call Pig Dagong to leave, his eyes suddenly sharpened. He quickly walked over and flipped over Qi Shengtian's corpse. As he thought, his flesh and blood had already begun to rot. The thick flesh and blood hadn't dyed the ground red. Rather, it seemed as if it had been cleanly swallowed up by some great mouth hidden underground. Qin Yu looked at the ground beneath his feet and gradually frowned. He had personally seen the blood tentacle completely corrode in the darkness. This could only mean that it hadn't truly died. Even if it hadn't died, it must have lost a great deal of strength. Otherwise, it would have never watched helplessly as Qin Yu took away the blood-flame fruits. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He kicked Pig Dagong and said, I'll give you a chance to get rich. Carefully smell the ground and see if there are any treasures hidden here. Pig Dagong shook his head again and again. He had an expression that said, Do you think I'm an idiot? He had personally experienced just how fierce the blood tentacle was. Qin Yu shook his head. I never thought you would be so smart. Pig Dagong humphed, revealing a high-spirited expression. What nonsense are you spouting? As the king of the pig race, I am smart and fierce. Qin Yu's complexion sank. If you refuse a toast, then you can only drink a forfeit. Hurry up and find what's underground. Pig Dagong was stunned. He seemed to have forgotten that he had already become Qin Yu's blood-fed beast. Facing his orders, there was no way he could resist at all. This is tyranny. This is utter disregard for the lives of pigs. I protest. I strongly protest. But if protesting was useful, the world would have been peaceful long ago. There wouldn't be so many grudges and grievances, right and wrong. Pig Dagong was filled with unwillingness. He lay on the ground and sniffed. Because this was an official order from Qin Yu, his instincts didn't allow him to play any tricks in the dark. He could only pray that there was nothing underground. But things didn't go as he wished. After a careful investigation, Pig Dagong smelled a strange scent. It was bloody, but also sweet. These were clearly two opposing and even seriously conflicting auras. But they had completely fused together, becoming even more enticing. Uncontrollably, Pig Dagong's lips curved up. Then, like a broken dam, saliva flowed out. Ayo! With an excited roar, Pig Dagong threw himself to the ground. His two tusks pierced into the earth, and like a shovel, he crazily dug into the ground. Chinyu discovered that there was something wrong with him, but didn't stop him. He quietly stood on the side, watching as Pig Dagong dug a deep pit at an astonishing speed. A moment later, a horrified scream suddenly rang out from the deep pit in the ground. Immediately after, Zhu Dagong sprang out. His black, needle-like hair was stained with a large patch of scarlet red, like red paint. But if one looked carefully, they would discover that this red color was constantly wriggling, trying to drill into Pig Dagong's body. Unfortunately, this pig's black skin had been tempered over and over again, and it had also undergone the baptism of the black hole. It was thick enough to be used as a city wall. The wriggling red color struggled for a long time, but still wasn't able to corrode through its defenses. Chinyu's heart settled. It was just as he thought. He shouted, "Stop for me!" A formidable suppression from the level of his bloodline caused Pig Dagong to instantly lose all strength. He fell to the ground, gasping for breath. "Master, save me! Master, save me!" Chinyu's lips twitched. He quickly cursed. "Idiot! Haven't you discovered that it can't harm you at all?" Pig Dagong was stunned. He carefully sensed that this was indeed the case. His spirits rose, and he cursed. "Little thing, you dare to bully anyone you see? Do you even know what a thick iron door looks like?" He rolled around, his long fur rapidly shaking. The sticky red color fell off. It didn't stain the dirt and rapidly gathered on the ground. Then, this jelly-like object rapidly rolled towards Qi Xingtian's corpse. But before it could get far, Pig Dagong stepped on it. Pig Dagong grinned, his expression fierce. "Little thing, you caused this grandpa pig to lose face. I won't let this go so easily." He opened his mouth and bit down. "Shut up." Chinyu's light voice echoed out. Looking at the jelly-like object that was less than an inch from his mouth, Pig Dagong froze for a second. He looked up with difficulty. Master, I was too excited this thing. I'll leave it to you to deal with." "Woo-woo-woo, my life. Why is it so bitter?" This time it was really right at the tip of my tongue. I was just a tiny bit away. The jelly-like object that was flung down rapidly lost its vitality. It seemed as if the air was poisonous, and it would die as soon as it was exposed outside. But its death meant that its harmful side had been stripped away. The smell of blood in the air faded away, leaving behind only an alluring sweetness. Chinyu faintly smiled. "Put it away. We can study it later." This thing was absolutely related to that terrifying blood vine. Before he could figure out just what it was, no matter how tempting it was, he couldn't eat it. He kicked the listless Pig Dagong. "We're leaving." The movements here were likely to draw attention. Since he had obtained the benefits, it was naturally best to leave as soon as possible. Delay for fear of change wasn't just a simple phrase. Over the endless years, countless seniors had paid the price of blood and even their lives for this. After cleaning up the scene, Chinyu quickly left the valley. He soon saw the female cultivator trapped in the array formation. However, her current condition was far worse than he expected. Her body was covered with wounds, and her dress was soaked in blood. Chinyu soon understood why she was in such a miserable state. After Qi Shantian died, the strength he had poured in her body had dispersed, causing her to be unable to withstand the impact of the array formation strength. He rubbed his nose. If he were to seriously consider this matter, he also seemed to be responsible for it. But the one who schemed against this female cultivator wasn't him. What caused her to fall into a perilous situation was a natural array formation. There was no need for Chinyu to stir up trouble for himself. Moreover, with Chinyu's current condition, he couldn't expose himself. It would be best if no one knew that he had appeared in this mountain valley today. Although one had to have a bottom line, they weren't family or friends, so there was no need for Chinyu to place himself in danger. He closed his eyes and opened them again, continuing to walk out of the mountain valley, as if he didn't see the female cultivator struggling on the verge of death. But at this time, Zhu Dagong suddenly stopped. He stared straight at the female cultivator trapped in the array formation. Master, as a great monster that is about to take human form, I am filled with curiosity towards human women. In any case, she will die soon. So how about I bring her out and let her learn from the differences between human women and my pig race beauties? I asked Master to agree. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He calmly nodded and said, I agree. Praise you, most benevolent master. Zhu Dagong impatiently turned into a bolt of black lightning and rushed into the array formation. The strength of this heaven and earth array formation was already about to be exhausted, so several attacks didn't hurt him at all. Good little beauty, Grandpa Pig is coming. Mu Xian's strength was exhausted. Because she had lost too much blood, her vision was blurry. She suddenly saw a wild boar appear, and this wild boar was staring at her with an incomparably wretched expression. A horrifying thought appeared in her mind, and she fainted. Zhu Dagong was stunned. As he looked at Mu Xian, who had fallen to the ground, he felt as if 10,000 horses were galloping in his heart. What was the meaning of this? What was the meaning of this? You saw the handsome, masculine, and powerful king of the pig race, and you fainted in fright? Are you saying that I'm ugly? That I'm frighteningly beautiful? Ha ha, ha ha ha. No matter who it was, this was something that he absolutely could not tolerate. Save her. What are you doing? Qin Yu's voice sounded out. Big Pig clenched his teeth. Right now, there was more important business to attend to. He couldn't expose himself. In the future, he would slowly train this little girl. This pig could guarantee that she would become the most loyal little maid that would fall head over heels in love with me. He picked up Mu Xian and placed her on his back. Then, Zhu Dagong jumped out several times, an impatient look on his face. Master, please wait a moment. I will be quick. Although saying these words was extremely shameful, when it came to benefits, what was face worth? Hold on. Qin Yu reached out a hand. He smiled and said, This isn't a place to stay for long. Take her and leave first. Zhu Dagong couldn't oppose this reason. He could only dryly smile and praise his master for his wisdom. After leaving the mountain valley, the swarm of ants flew over and picked up the two people and the pig before quickly leaving. Because the process of obtaining the blood flame fruit had gone unexpectedly smoothly, Qin Yu had plenty of time. After the swarm of ants flew out of the safe range, they landed. Master, do you want to inspect the blood flame fruit? I will take it out now. Don't worry, I understand the rules. I will immediately take this woman and disappear. There is no need to worry. I will wait for you outside. At the cave entrance, Zhu Dagong had a thoughtful expression on his face. Qin Yu faintly smiled. Is that so? It seems you are quite thirsty. But what you desire is only this woman's body, right? As for the items on her body, you shouldn't be interested in them. Leave them all to me. Zhu Dagong, what? Qin Yu, what do you want to do? Can't we just follow the normal script for once? Do you want to be like this? Every time you steal food from a pig's mouth. 3 times, this is already the 3rd time. Do you really think I don't dare to go crazy? Qin Yu glanced at the enraged Zhu Dagong. He lightly said, What? Do you have an opinion? I do. Zhu Dagong erupted in anger. But as he met Qin Yu's eyes, he felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. He lowered his voice and said, Opinion my ass. Master, you are the greatest. You could do whatever you want. I will completely follow your will. Chapter 684. There was no reason for Zhu Dagong to refuse. Zhu Dagong calmly placed one magic treasure after another on the ground. There was a ring, a pearl necklace, a necklace. When it took off the bracelet that seemed to flow with starlight, Qin Yu keenly noticed that Zhu Dagong's hoof was trembling slightly, and the corner of its mouth was twitching. This was it. Without giving Zhu Dagong a chance to think of anything else, Qin Yu bent down and took the bracelet away. He lightly said, This thing is a bit interesting. He really did sense it. Zhu Dagong's face was ashen, and he stiffly nodded. Qin Yu's smile deepened. He earnestly looked at this bracelet. Just what was so different about it? Why was it able to attract Zhu Dagong's attention? Although he was suspicious of this fellow's character, Qin Yu recognized his ability to identify treasures. If he didn't hesitate to carry the shameful title of very fast on his back, then there must be something extraordinary about this bracelet. But what left Qin Yu puzzled was that he didn't feel any powerful aura from this bracelet. The only fluctuations he felt were that it had a certain protective effect on the soul. Perhaps it was because he had lost his cultivation that his eyesight had declined. He glanced over and saw Zhu Dagong's listless appearance. Qin Yu was even more certain of his guess. He would put it away first and carefully appraise it after his cultivation was restored. Perhaps there might be some unexpected harvests. But at this time, through his connection with the blood-fed beast, Qin Yu sensed that Zhu Dagong's emotions were fluctuating, as if he were filled with shock. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. What did you discover? Just what secret is hidden in this bracelet? This is my order. Zhu Dagong lifted his hoof and opened a spatial crack. A mass of blood-red light flew out. Then, the bracelet in Qin Yu's hand erupted with an even brighter light. Motes of stars appeared in this light, as if they were stars floating in an endless galaxy. An invisible pulling force was released, pulling the ball of blood-red light over. It landed directly on the bracelet, and the instant the two came into contact, the blood-red light dissolved into some kind of flowing liquid. In the blink of an eye, the liquid covered the entire bracelet, and in the next moment, it was completely absorbed. Qin Yu's eyes subconsciously widened. He watched as the dark blue color on the surface of the bracelet rapidly vanished like paper being swallowed up by flames, revealing a deep and thick dark gold underneath. Countless complex and exquisite patterns wove together, forming a mystical and cryptic diagram. He had already seen clearly that the blood-colored light that had been absorbed was the thing that Zhu Dagong had dug out from the ground and suspected to be the source of the blood vines. But why was it that the bracelet was able to absorb it and cause such a shocking change? It was as if a layer of camouflage, or perhaps a seal, had been broken and the original appearance of the bracelet was revealed. Before Qin Yu could think any further, the light emitted by the transformed bracelet began to rapidly enlarge, turning into dazzling stars. Looking at this light was like looking up at a sea of stars. A suction force suddenly appeared. Qin Yu knew this was bad, but he didn't have time to respond. The world spun, and when he recovered his consciousness, his gaze swept the surroundings, and he was instantly stunned, because at this moment, he was in a boundless sea of stars, and his surroundings were numerous, incomparably enormous stars. Standing in front of the star, Qin Yu was like a small and weak ant beneath a mountain piercing through the clouds. Awe and fear rose from the depths of his soul. Suddenly, these quiet stars in the sea of stars began to slowly revolve, emitting deep rumbles that seemed to come from the highest heavens. They carried with them an incomparable penetrating and destructive strength, as if they could grind everything into powder. Qin Yu instantly felt the terror of these stars. It was like a million mountains were pressing down on him, and as time passed, this oppressive strength grew stronger and stronger. Ah! Qin Yu cried out in pain. At this moment, he felt as if he could explode at any moment. Give up. This strength isn't something that you can withstand. To be buried in the sea of stars is a revered title that only divine realm powerhouses can enjoy. With your weak cultivation, it is already gratifying that you were able to accomplish this. Why do you need to resist and endure unnecessary pain? Liberation is right in front of you, as long as you are willing. Countless thoughts drilled into Qin Yu's mind. His eyes blurred and countless cracks began to appear on the surface of his body. The stars spun faster and faster. The rumbling they emitted was like the taunting laughter of giants. A lowly and insignificant human actually dared to attempt to break through the torture of the stars. No, I cannot give up. I won't die, I won't. Because of the tremendous pressure, Qin Yu's bulging eyes were bloodshot and his blood vessels bulged out. He looked up at the surrounding stars and angrily roared out, "With just you lot, you want to kill me? That's far from enough." In the cave, when the bracelet revealed its original appearance, an invisible strength arrived. Space instantly froze, as if it were a giant block of ice. Zhu Dagong's eyes widened with panic, but his expression was still frozen in the pain he felt after discovering that Qin Yu had unraveled the treasure. Comparing the two, it was strange and comical. He didn't know what had happened, but without a doubt, it was related to the bracelet in Qin Yu's hand. After trying every method to escape, but failing, Zhu Dagong gave up. He could only place all his hopes on Qin Yu. But at this time, his heart fiercely shrank, and a great fear rose up in his heart. This was the ability he obtained after becoming the king of the pig race, Danger Foresight. After obtaining this ability, it had helped him overcome many difficulties. But there had never been a time when it gave him such a terrifying feeling. It was like the collapse of the heavens and earth had swept away all life in the world, sending them into the abyss of death and destruction. No one could escape, but everything in the cave remained still, without the slightest abnormality. So, why would there be this terrifying feeling of annihilation? Zhu Dagong struggled to turn his eyes. Finally, with a pair of white eyes, he discovered that there was something different about the frozen Qin Yu. Just by looking at him, he could clearly feel an incomparably terrifying pressure, as if invisible stars were suppressing him. The fear in his heart intensified. This was because Zhu Dagong was well aware that if he were the one withstanding this pressure, he would have already died. But even if Qin Yu could withstand it, how long could he last? Once he collapsed and died, as a beast that was fed with blood, he would inevitably be buried with his master. Zhu Dagong finally understood why his Danger Foresight ability had been triggered and why it was so terrifying. Tears filled his eyes, but they were imprisoned by an invisible strength, unable to flow. His vision was completely blurred. If he could choose, Zhu Dagong would rather not discover the aura of a treasure on Muxin's body. But time would not flow backwards. Now that things had reached this step, there was no turning back. Zhu Dagong thought back to the elder who had pushed him onto the throne of the pig race. That elder had once warned him not to abuse the heaven-bestowed talent of the pig race to obtain things that shouldn't belong to him. Otherwise, if he accumulated more and more karma, there would come a day when he would suffer a backlash. Was this the time when he would suffer a backlash? Zhu Dagong's heart filled with despair. Suddenly, there was a light cracking sound in his ears. Then, the terrifying strength that covered the cave instantly vanished from sight. The confinement space was restored, and Zhu Dagong's accumulated tears finally flowed freely, drenching a large puddle on the ground. I didn't die. I really didn't die. Zhu Dagong wept tears of joy. Qin Yu opened his eyes. His pupils were dark and gloomy, revealing a deep weariness. He only had time to glance at the bracelet in his hand that had turned into motes of starlight before his consciousness fell into darkness. It was a long sleep without the invasion of any dreams. When Qin Yu opened his eyes, not only had all the energy he used up been restored, but he also felt unprecedentedly relaxed. Although he still couldn't summon any magic power, he could clearly see his soul space. The surface of his soul was covered in cracks, as if it had been forcefully glued together. There was a dazzling chain wrapped around it, shining with runes that floated around it. Chain of stars, produced in an unknown land. It has been passed down in the world for endless years. It is a transcendent, soul-level treasure. Not only does it possess a formidable defensive power, but it also has suppressive and regenerative functions. This information appeared on its own. Because Qin Yu had passed the interrogations of the stars, he had become the new master of this supreme treasure that had disappeared into the river of time for countless years. There were still many mysteries. For instance, why did the chain of stars appear in the hands of a weak little female cultivator? For instance, why was the source body of the blood-red tentacles able to undo the seal on the surface of the chain of stars? But even if he couldn't obtain an answer to these questions, Qin Yu was sure that he had obtained a great harvest that surpassed his imagination. With the help of the chain of stars, although it couldn't solve his difficult situation, it could at least help him gain more time. It wouldn't be like before, where he could feel the aura of death approaching at every moment. To use ember flies to ashes in a severely wounded state, although the isolation that solitary Westgate gave him could slow down the rate at which his soul was burned, after being wounded again in the black hole, this isolation had been damaged. Although there was no invasion of pain, the feeling of being able to feel his soul approaching destruction at every moment was enough to cause his mind to collapse. Qin Yu let out a long breath. He felt the dark cave in front of him become brighter and more beautiful. Thus, when he saw the nervous Mu Xian not too far away, he was startled for a moment before he smiled. No matter how it was said, the chain of stars was this little girl's possession. If it were only an ordinary treasure, Qin Yu would have taken it as a matter of course to save her life. But now, he felt that he should treat her better. After Mu Xian woke up, she found herself in this cave. There was also a man and a restless wild boar. At first glance, Mu Xian recognized that this wild boar was the same one that had appeared in front of her before she fell unconscious. Thus, its wretched expression immediately appeared in her mind. And what caused Mu Xian to collapse was that she discovered that all of her belongings had been taken away. A horrifying thought struck her mind, causing her face to instantly pale. Luckily, the restless Zhu Dagong wasn't in the mood to speak nonsense with her. He coldly shouted, "Stop being so smug. This grandpa pig isn't interested in you." Mu Xian relaxed. She looked at Qin Yu. If it were him, although he would still be sad and indignant, he would still be able to accept it. Zhu Dagong was so angry that he actually laughed. Was this little girl's brain made of tofu? She didn't even look at her own situation and only knew how to let her imagination run wild. He sternly reprimanded Mu Xian and had her stay on the side. Zhu Dagong only hoped that Qin Yu would wake up soon. If something happened to him, then this pig would also suffer misfortune. So, when Qin Yu woke up and revealed a smile, Zhu Dagong was extremely excited. "Master, my most respected and powerful master, you've finally woken up." His attitude was extremely intimate, leaving Qin Yu bewildered. He reached out a hand and pushed away Zhu Dagong's pig head. "How long was I unconscious for?" "Half a day." Qin Yu relaxed. Luckily, he hadn't caused any trouble. He stood up and looked at Mu Xian. She had already hurriedly stood up, her expression tense. After a moment of hesitation, Qin Yu directly said, "I was the one who saved you, and I've already taken the reward. It's that bracelet on your body. Now we are even. I still have matters to attend to, so take your things and leave." The corners of Zhu Dagong's lips twitched. "You clearly wanted to cruelly ignore me, but was this grandpa pig who saved you? You even took away the favor and benefits. You are ruthless." Mu Xian's eyes widened. She immediately regained her composure and bowed again and again. "Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior." She hurriedly picked up the items on the ground and left, afraid that Qin Yu would change his mind. The sound of footsteps faded away and then turned back. Qin Yu looked at Mu Xian, who was slowly returning to the cave. He couldn't help but frown. "You don't want to leave?" Mu Xian was frightened. She hurriedly said, No, my injuries are very heavy right now here. I'm not familiar with this place. Senior, could you? Qin Yu's frown deepened. "You should have a token to ask for help on you, right?" Mu Xian lowered her head, her face flushing red. Qin Yu was left speechless. It seemed that this little girl had forgotten to bring it. She didn't even have this sort of common sense, and yet she dared to go treasure hunting with others? No wonder she had been sold off. Seeing Qin Yu's gloomy expression and not saying a word, Mu Xian became even more nervous. "Senior, rest assured, I absolutely won't let you make a trip for nothing. I live at Wudong Mountain. Since you sent me there, you will surely reward me generously and She couldn't finish her sentence. The little girl was so anxious that she began to sweat. Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. Where this female cultivator lived, there would definitely be a massive number of cultivators. The blood flame fruit could repair the mortal body and destroy the power of curses. But it was far too strong. It was far too risky to recklessly give it to Old Man Zhou. It would be best if he could supplement it with other materials and refine it into a pill with a mild effect. He might as well send this female cultivator home and find an alchemist along the way. How far is Wudong Mountain from here? Mu Xian was confused. I don't know where this is, but it's about 20,000 miles east of the mountain valley. As she spoke to hear, she was startled. She cautiously looked around. Qin Yu didn't seem to notice. He silently calculated the time and then said, "Let's go." He stood up and walked away. Mu Xian quickly followed. Suddenly, there was a loud, buzzing sound. Purple-back, blue-wing ants flew in from all directions. Mu Xian screamed, her face paling even further. Qin Yu lightly said, "These are spirit insects that I raised." With a thought, the swarm of ants picked up the two people and the pig and soared towards Wudong Mountain. Looking at Mu Xian, who had a look of awe on her face, Zhu Dagong humped twice, thinking that this little girl was far too naive. Chapter 685. 10 miles away from Wudong Mountain, the swarm of ants quietly landed in a hollow. Qin Yu said without expression, "You've arrived." Mu Xian had a grateful expression. "Thank you, Senior, for sending me back." Seeing that Qin Yu wasn't in the mood to speak any further, she respectfully bowed and took several steps back. But just as he took several steps, Qin Yu lightly said, "You got lost in the mountains and I brought you back. That's all." Mu Xian instantly broke out in a cold sweat. She trembled and said yes. She walked far away before she felt a bit of warmth on her body. Senior is so scary. His strength must be terrifying. It seems that Senior Brother Qi and the others will not be able to return. Mu Xian shook her head. With her cultivation, it was impossible for her to do such a thing. Even if someone were to investigate, they would not suspect her. After confirming that Mu Xian had left, Qin Yu kicked Pig Dagon. The latter whimpered as its body rapidly shrank until it was the size of a mouse. It quickly ran to Qin Yu's shoulder and sat down. Looking for an alchemist was risky, so he had to disguise himself a little. For example, if he had a mini pig sitting on his shoulder, it would be obvious that he wasn't an ordinary person. This would save him a lot of trouble. After instructing the ants to hide themselves, Qin Yu walked towards Wudong Mountain. Mu Tong looked up at the massive signboard with the word Sky Declaring Pavilion written in gold on a black background. A trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. Was there going to be another auction when he specifically asked someone to invite him over? But that wasn't right either. With his status and identity, he didn't have the qualifications to notify them alone. Shaking his head and suppressing these thoughts, Mu Tong stepped inside. Someone immediately welcomed him. "Fellow Taoist, Mu has arrived. Please follow me." The one who spoke was a pale-faced, thin man with a pair of small, slender eyes, giving off an extremely shrewd feeling. He subconsciously frowned as he glanced at Mu Tong, but in the blink of an eye, he hid it. Mu Tong was a bit overwhelmed by the favor. The other party was a senior manager of Sky Declaring Pavilion. He had only seen him a few times at auctions, but he had never received such treatment. He hurriedly returned the greeting with a smile, but at the same time, he secretly muttered to himself, "There must be a reason for this abnormality." After entering the luxuriously decorated box, Mu Tong could no longer hide the shock on his face when he saw the three people drinking tea inside. He quickly stepped forward and bowed. Mu Tong greets Elder Lu Yu, Grandmaster Qi, and Miss Feng Qing. No, something was definitely going to happen today. Mu Tong bowed down motionlessly, fine beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. Elder Lu Kuan was an elder with real authority in the sect, while he was just a small deacon. There was not much of a difference between their positions. Master Qi, on the other hand, was the most famous pill refinement master in the surrounding area of Wudong Mountain. He had a wide network of friends, enough to be on the same level as a sect master. As for Miss Feng Qing, she was the general manager of the Sky Declaring Pavilion. No one knew her true identity, but the Sky Declaring Pavilion that covered the entire Upper Yuan Mountain range was an extremely terrifying superpower. As its spokesperson, naturally, no one dared to look down on her. These three had actually gathered together to wait for a nobody like him. That's right, in front of these three Mu Tong was very clear and certain that he was an unremarkable and lowly character. Elder Luge's expression was cold, and he had never shown any emotion to anyone. However, there was a faint smile on his face as he spoke first. Mu Tong, I won't beat around the bush with you. I called you here today because Grandmaster Qi wants to buy an item from you. Miss Feng Qing and I will be the witnesses. Don't worry, Grandmaster Qi will definitely give you a sufficient reward. He won't let you suffer a loss. Mu Tong's mind was a bit numb. His Mu family had been in decline for many years, and all the good things had been lost. What could possibly catch Grandmaster Qi's eye? Even though he was confused, he still hurriedly said, Elder is too serious. Mu Tong has always received your care in the sect. If Grandmaster Qi needs something, just say the word, and I will immediately send it over. There is no need to delay your Grandmaster Qi and Miss Feng Qing's time. These words were enough to give him face. Elder Luge's smile widened. He waved his hand and said, That won't do. Otherwise, if word of this gets out, I don't know what will become of us. Looking at Mu Tong's attitude, as long as he spoke, this matter would be settled. To be able to obtain a favor from Grandmaster Qi for such a simple matter was simply too worth it. With a light cough, Elder Luge said, 3 months ago, you purchased a bracelet that is beneficial to the soul from a small trade fair held by the Sky Declaring Pavilion, right? Grandmaster Qi is willing to buy it back at 5 times the price you paid for it. I wonder if you are willing? Mu Tong's face stiffened, speechless. Grandmaster Qi frowned. He lightly said, If you aren't willing, then 10 times is fine. Elder Luge's complexion darkened. He felt he had lost face. Mu Tong, do you agree or not? Feng Qing smiled as she looked at this scene. Today, she had only happened to be present and had the intention of forming a good relationship with Grandmaster Qi. Thus, she naturally wouldn't say anything. Across from her, Mu Tong's complexion paled and sweat streamed down his face. Grandmaster, Elder, please don't misunderstand. It's not that I'm greedy, but that bracelet is not in my hands right now. He immediately explained what had happened. Grandmaster Qi's complexion darkened. He had spent a great deal of effort to finally find the whereabouts of that item, but he never imagined that something would happen. Elder Luge said in a low voice, Who did Mu Xian go with? When will she return? Mu Tong bitterly smiled. I don't know. The room fell silent. Mu Tong groaned inwardly, his robes soaked in sweat. Grandmaster Qi and Elder Luge spoke in secret. Then the latter said, Mu Tong, immediately contact Mu Xian and have her return to Wutong Mountain, or I can send someone to pick her up. Grandmaster Qi lightly said. Feng Qing's eyes brightened. It seemed that this bracelet was extremely important. It was sold from Sky Declaring Pavilion. Who would be so stupid as to not discover it? Otherwise, it would be easy to form a good relationship with Grandmaster Qi. After thinking for a moment, she gave up on her plans to secretly tamper with the bracelet. It would be bad if something went wrong. Mu Tong hurriedly said, I will immediately contact Mu Xian and have her return as soon as possible. Elder Luge waved his hand. Mu Tong respectfully bowed and retreated. Once he left Sky Declaring Pavilion, he immediately jumped up and said, My little ancestor, I told you not to go. How good would it have been if you had listened to me? You must take good care of the bracelet. Otherwise, our Mu family will be completely finished. He rushed back home, opening the door and running straight into the inner room. Inside was the last remaining bloodline-sensing treasure of the Mu family. It could transmit simple messages between clansmen. When Mu Tong heard the voice of the Spirit Lord in Mu Xian's room, he almost collapsed. This clumsy little girl, she didn't even bring her messenger spirit bead when she went out. As his heart was filled with discomfort, he suddenly heard the courtyard door open. Mu Xian choked with sobs. Uncle, I'm back. How scary. I don't want to go out exploring anymore. I almost didn't come back. Mu Tong ran out, grabbing onto Mu Xian with both hands. You stupid girl, you're finally back. Hurry and give me to you. His eyes suddenly widened. He looked at the empty white wrist in front of him, and it was like he had been struck in the head. His vision darkened and his ears buzzed. Where is the bracelet? Where's the bracelet I gave you? Great aunt, don't scare me like that. Mu Xian was filled with grievance and fear. Just how much suffering did I suffer? I almost didn't come back. When we met, he didn't comfort me, ask me, or even enlighten me. Instead, he directly asked for my bracelet and even shouted at me. Uncle really doesn't love me anymore. Wah! I want to cry. Wah, wah, wah. Cry as hard as I can. Mu Tong's face darkened. After a moment of fluster, he finally coaxed her to stop crying. Mu Xian, stop messing around. Hurry and tell me where the bracelet is. Uncle really needs it urgently. Mu Xian sobbed. Bracelet. I gave it to someone. Before he could even catch his breath, Mu Tong fell face first on the ground. The loud bang startled Mu Xian. Uncle, what's wrong? Don't scare me. Mu Tong's face paled. It's over. It's all over this time. Soon. He seemed to have grasped onto the last straw. He stared at Mu Xian with a nervous expression. Who did you get it to? Where's he? Mu Xian shook her head. He sent me to Wudong Mountain and left. I don't know either. She looked nervous. Uncle, what's wrong? Mu Tong weakly lay on the ground. It's nothing. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Things had already come to this, so what if he said it out loud? He could only make Mu Xian feel guilty and sad. Perhaps this was fate. Their Mu family was doomed to fall. They had finally seen a glimmer of hope for a comeback, but in the blink of an eye, they had been thrown into the abyss. Looking at Elder Lu Zhao and Grandmaster Qi's attitudes, they seemed to place a great deal of importance on the bracelet. Now that it had been lost, it was inevitable that they would be implicated. Mu Xian, how was your treasure hunting trip this time? Did you find anything? Mu Tong had already decided that he would shoulder all the responsibility by himself. As he thought about how it was likely that he wouldn't be able to see Mu Xian again in the future, his eyes became affectionate. Uncle, I almost died outside. Mu Xian finally had a chance to explain what had happened. She changed some key parts and said that she had broken out of the array formation by herself. Afterwards, I lost my way. Luckily, that senior helped me, and I was able to return alive. I gave the bracelet to him. She paused and then said in a small voice, Uncle, are you really all right? Mu Tong clenched his teeth. Those bastards, they actually dared to treat you like this. It's good that they died. His thoughts raced. He continued to say, Qi, Shantian, and those bastards wanted to use you as a sacrificial pawn from the very beginning, so they didn't tell anyone that you went treasure hunting with them. That's even better. Just pretend that you don't know about this and don't tell anyone that you were with them. Grandmaster Qi was Qi Shengtian's uncle. If he and Elder Lu Zhao didn't know about this, this was without a doubt proof of this. Mu Xian quickly nodded. I understand, uncle. Suddenly, the courtyard doors were pushed open from the outside. Mu Tong, since your niece has returned, hurry up and come with us. It was someone from Sky declaring pavilion. Looking at the smiling and thin manager, Mu Tong's heart sank. They had actually been monitoring this place this entire time. That bracelet was likely even more precious than he had imagined. His face paled. Mu Tong squeezed out a smile. Manager Bai, that there was an accident. Mu Xian's bracelet was lost. Manager Bai's complexion paled. Lost. Are you sure you lost it? Fellow Taoist Mu, a smart person should know what they can do and what they can't. What do you think? Mu Tong bitterly said, it really was lost. Otherwise, even if I were as bold as the heavens, I wouldn't dare to hide something that Grandmaster Qi wants. Manager Bai took a deep breath. You can personally explain this matter to the Grandmaster. Mu Tong bitterly nodded. He glanced at Mu Xian from the corner of his eyes, telling her to remember his words. I will go with you. Miss Mu Xian will also come with us. Manager Bai, let's go together. Manager Bai turned and left, his expression incomparably gloomy. He had followed Miss Fengqing's orders in order to avoid unnecessary trouble and leave a better impression on Grandmaster Qi. He never expected this to happen. Things had become troublesome. Sky declaring pavilion in that same box. Grandmaster Qi fiercely stood up, his expression fierce. You lost the bracelet? Tell me you lost the bracelet. A terrifying aura erupted from his body. The air rumbled, and the tea set on the table was instantly shattered to pieces. Mu Tong's face paled, and blood flowed out from the corners of his mouth. Beneath this terrifying aura, he shivered and couldn't even speak. Mu Xian's injuries had not yet healed. Now she spat out a mouthful of blood and fell unconscious. Elder Lu Zhao clenched his teeth. Mu Tong, I will give you one more chance. Hand over the bracelet, and I will not pursue this matter any further. The deeper meaning was that if you continue to be so stubborn, don't worry about me being rude to you. Grandmaster Qi took a deep breath and restrained his aura. Mu Tong kowtowed again and again. Grandmaster, Elder, the bracelet has indeed been lost. Even if I were to be as bold as the heavens, I wouldn't dare to deceive you too. Grandmaster Qi slumped down on a sofa and leaned back. He closed his eyes and fell into a deep trance. There was a deathly silence in the box. Mu Tong was dripping with sweat. He knew that the fate of his uncle and nephew would soon be decided. Although Wudong Mountain was named after a mountain, it was actually an ancient mountain ruin. Because of some unknown reason, it had collapsed and the rubble had filled up the ravines in the earth. The city had been built above these ruins. Qin Yu hadn't been in the city for long. After spending a bit of time, he was able to gather some simple information about the city. For instance, the most famous and strongest alchemy service organization was called Sky Declaring Pavilion. In addition, he confirmed information about Sky Declaring Pavilion from other aspects. Qin Yu had already made his decision. This sort of powerful chain organization would place a great deal of importance on their reputation. Perhaps this would save him a great deal of trouble. Of course, it was impossible for Qin Yu to take out all of the blood flame fruits he had. He would refine half a pill and half a fruit as compensation. That should be enough to dispel their greed. This was the decision that Qin Yu made after careful consideration as he hurried along. A moment later, he arrived outside Sky Declaring Pavilion. He swept his eyes around and stepped inside. Unlike other places, Sky Declaring Pavilion wouldn't take the initiative to greet guests. Only after determining that there was a need would there be someone specifically assigned to receive them. Qin Yu walked to the alchemy service area. He looked around for a moment and beckoned. A female cultivator walked over with a smile. "Guest, what are your orders?" She glanced at the little pig on Qin Yu's shoulder, and her tone became increasingly gentle. "I would like to refine some pills." The female cultivator brightly smiled. "Would you like to prepare your own materials, or would you like to purchase pills from Sky Declaring Pavilion?" "I would." The female cultivator gestured to the side. "Guest, please follow me. After determining the rank of your materials, I will be able to recommend you a suitable alchemist." Passing through the crowd of people in the alchemy area, Qin Yu arrived at a white stone house with a black door. There were over a dozen similar stone houses. After waiting for a while, the stone house opened from the inside and a cultivator walked out. The female cultivator smiled and said, "It's your turn. I'll be waiting outside. If you don't have any objections to the appraiser's result, just give me the receipt." Qin Yu nodded. He pushed open the door and walked in. The room wasn't too large. Behind a large black experimental bench that seemed to be made from crystal sat a tired middle-aged man. He didn't bother with pleasantries and directly said, "Guest, please take out your materials." Since he had come here, he naturally wouldn't hesitate. Qin Yu patted the mini pig Big Gang on his shoulder. It hummed and slashed its hoof through the air. A crack suddenly appeared, and a blood flame fruit flew out. Behind the experimental bench, a middle-aged man who was drinking water spat out a mouthful of water. If he hadn't seen wrongly just now, then this mini pig had actually torn open space. It was normal for powerful cultivators to shatter the void, but for a pig to do so, that was a bit too outrageous. And what was most terrifying was that from start to finish, there wasn't even the slightest movement. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have been able to feel any fluctuations in his aura. It was like opening a pocket. Just what level of strength did one need to be able to accomplish this? The middle-aged man looked at Big Gang with a look of awe and awe. As he looked at this common-looking black-robed youth in front of him, he held him in much higher regard. There wasn't even the slightest bit of aura. How was this possible? Wudong Mountain was deep in the Upper Prime Mountain Range, a place where ordinary people couldn't reach. It seemed that this person was the same as his pet, he was also a hidden master. Respected guest, please wait a moment. This humble servant will serve you with the utmost sincerity, blood flame fruit. His voice suddenly rose. He was like an old duck that had been grabbed by the neck, his face rapidly flushing red. He threw himself onto the experimental bench and picked up the appraisal lens. He carefully looked over it several times, becoming increasingly excited the more he looked. It was real. It really was a blood flame fruit. It was known as a supreme treasure that could restore flesh and bones from the brink of death, a treasure that could heal all wounds. After a long time, the middle-aged man regained his composure. He awkwardly smiled and said, "Dear guest, I've made a fool of myself. It's just that the materials you provided are too precious." There was absolutely no mistake. This seemingly young black-robed man might be tens of thousands or even tens of thousands of years old. Look at those pitch-black eyes. They were so deep that you couldn't see the end. They were filled with the vicissitudes of time. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and stood up. "Dear guest, the materials you provided belong to the highest level of existence. I no longer have the qualifications to touch them. Please come with me. I will bring you to see my teacher." The door opened from the inside. The bored female cultivator revealed a brilliant smile, but then her face stiffened. The middle-aged man said, "Honored guest, from now on, I will personally receive you." He bowed. "Dear guest, please come with me." Not only was the female cultivator stunned, but the surrounding guests also widened their eyes, their faces filled with disbelief. The appraiser of Sky Declaring Pavilion had a high status and status, yet he was so respectful to this young man. Just who was this person? As Chinyu was preparing to leave with the middle-aged man, a group of cultivators carried 2 wooden boxes out from Sky Declaring Pavilion. The one leading them was a pale and thin man with a gloomy expression. The middle-aged man cupped his hands together and bowed. "Chief Steward Bai, is teacher free right now? I have received an honored guest." Chief Steward Bai squeezed out a smile. "Grandmaster Jiang should be free right now." He nodded towards Chinyu and cupped his hands together in greeting. He didn't have the qualifications to ignore the honored guest that an appraiser had spoken of. Suddenly, one of the wooden boxes shattered and a man tumbled to the ground, his expression panic-stricken. "Chief Steward Bai, it was I who offended Grandmaster Chi. I ask that you show mercy and spare my niece." He had pretended to be knocked unconscious in order to wait for a chance to blow things up. Perhaps that would give him a slim chance of survival. I beg you. Chief Steward Bai's face paled. Today's matters couldn't be brought to light. With Mu Tong causing such a ruckus, it would definitely cause a series of waves. "You bastard, seize him." As he spoke, he cupped his hands together at the surrounding people. "Honored guests, this person lost an extremely precious treasure of Grandmaster Chi Yunshan's. Thus he was punished by the Grandmaster. I will immediately bring him away so that he doesn't disturb everyone's mood." "No, it's not like that. I have already bought that bracelet, so it is mine. Even if I lost it, it has nothing to do with Grandmaster Chi." Mu Tong couldn't care less anymore. He directly pointed out the matter. "I am a deacon of the Blue Wave sect. You cannot treat people's lives like grass." Chief Steward Bai trembled with anger. "What nonsense! Hurry and seize him." Now that all pretense of cordiality had been torn apart, how could Mu Tong be willing to surrender without a fight? In the chaos, another wooden box was knocked over and a young woman tumbled out. Her face happened to be facing Chinyu. It was Mu Xian. In that instant, countless thoughts raced through his mind as he tried to connect everything together. He had lost the bracelet, and because of this he was placed in a difficult position. It seemed that the source of all of this was him. Chinyu frowned, his eyes becoming cloudy and uncertain. "Shut up. The Blue Wave sect's face has been lost because of you." With a cold shout, Elder Louis West strode forwards. His aura rose, and a powerful suppressive aura left everyone startled. The surroundings immediately quieted down. "Grandmaster Chi, Mu Tong is the scum of my sect. Not only did he lose your treasure, but he even dared to slander you. Grandmaster, please rest assured that I will bring him back to the sect and give you an explanation." Grandmaster Chi gloomily nodded. Feng Qing had an indifferent expression. In the world of cultivators, the strong preyed on the weak. She had seen such things happen far too many times. Besides mocking them inwardly, she wouldn't interfere at all. Mu Tong had a panic-stricken expression. He was well aware that in today's situation, once he and Mu Xian left everyone's line of sight, they would undoubtedly die. If Elder Luiyue killed them, all he needed to do was find an excuse to resist and try to escape. That would be enough to give an explanation to the sect. No one would care about the life or death of two little cultivators from a declining family. No, everything I said is true. Elder Luiyue, you have colluded with Grandmaster Qi. I will expose you to the sect. Elder Luiyue sneered. Very good. I will wait for that day. He lifted a hand and grasped forwards. An invisible strength surged out, imprisoning Mu Tong so that he couldn't utter another word. He turned around. Grandmaster Qi, Miss Feng Qing, I will bid my farewells first. Inside and outside Sky Declaring Pavilion, there was a deathly silence. No one was an idiot. From Mu Tong's words and actions, they were able to sense something. But so what? Elder Luiyue and Grandmaster Qi's wills were enough to distort black and white. If even Miss Feng Qing remained silent, they certainly wouldn't look for trouble. In this silence, a light voice suddenly sounded out, "Wait a moment." Elder Luiyue instantly turned around. A sharp light rose in his eyes as he locked onto the person who spoke. His pupils shrank imperceptibly, and he said, "Fellow Taoist, what advice do you have?" Qin Yu flicked his fingers. "I haven't seen enough yet, so how can I take him away?" See enough? Everyone's hearts trembled. Even if this was true, there was no need for him to say it out loud. Wasn't that just looking for trouble? Countless people broke out in a cold sweat for Qin Yu. However, they also felt a bit happy in their hearts. Although they didn't dare to stop someone from distorting black and white like this, they were still excited to see someone step forward. Elder Liuyue's complexion paled. He coldly said, "I must solemnly remind this fellow Taoist not to make a mistake, otherwise you won't be able to bear the consequences." The middle-aged man, appraising the materials, paled, and his heart trembled. This person wasn't as harmless as he seemed on the surface. If he really angered him, then even an elder of the Blue Wave sect might not be able to deal with him. He hurriedly took several steps forward, bowed, and quickly said several words. Feng Qing's eyes narrowed. She looked at Qin Yu and then at Zhu Dagong on his shoulder. Her expression was dignified. After a moment of thought, she stepped forwards and said, "Guest, could you give face to Sky Declaring Pavilion and not interfere in this matter?" Grandmaster Qi still needed to be on good terms with him. Qin Yu smiled. "And if I say no?" Zhu Dagong, who was lying on Qin Yu's shoulder, nearly fell over. "Big brother, could you please not play around? You are walking on a tightrope here. If you aren't careful, you will die a horrible death." Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They never imagined that this person would be so unyielding. Even facing Miss Feng Qing, he didn't give her any face at all. Feng Qing frowned. She glanced at him with a bit of sadness in her eyes. "Honored guest, why must you make things difficult for me?" "Well, since you insist on interfering, then please leave before you deal with this matter. Sky Declaring Pavilion does not want to be implicated." These words expressed her respect towards Qin Yu and also vaguely reminded Elder Luiyue and Grandmaster Qi that this person wasn't someone to be trifled with. Immediately, everyone's eyes changed as they looked at Qin Yu. Elder Luiyue and Grandmaster Qi's complexions became increasingly ugly, but they didn't speak. This boy was clearly extraordinary. If he could force Sky Declaring Pavilion to back down, they didn't want to make enemies with him. But if they let the Mu family uncle and nephew go like this, where would their face be? They had to find a suitable reason. In the awkward silence, Mu Xian tumbled out from the box. After a coughing fit, she slowly opened her eyes. After a brief daze, she saw her uncle being caught. Then, she saw Qin Yu standing in the crowd. Mu Xian's gaze paused for a moment. Then she bit her lip and slowly lowered her head. Chapter 686. Qin Yu's lips curled up. He faintly smiled at Qi Yunshan and lightly said, I know you have an intense thought that tortures your heart, and you urgently want to know the answer. I will satisfy you now. That's right, the bracelet you're looking for is in my hands. Feng Qing's pupils shrank. She was even more sure of her guess. This seemingly ordinary black-robed youth was absolutely an unfathomably deep existence. Otherwise, how could he dare to recklessly provoke Qi Yunshan's sensitive nerves at this time? Qi Yunshan's eyes brightened, and his face flushed red with excitement. He stared at Qinyu, his voice hoarse. Is that true? Qinyu nodded. Of course it's true. Qi Yunshan took a deep breath and cupped his hands together. Fellow Taoist, I am Qi Yunshan. I have some achievements in alchemy, and I have unintentionally offended you today. I ask that fellow Taoist not take offense. That bracelet belongs to my Qi family's ancestor and is extremely important to the juniors of my Qi family. If fellow Taoist is willing to return it, I am willing to pay any price. Moreover, from now on, fellow Taoist will become my close friend and the most honored guest of my Qi family. He didn't even mention Mu Tong and Mu Xian. After determining the whereabouts of the bracelet, they didn't have the qualifications to be noticed. Whether they were alive or dead didn't make a difference. Although I don't know whether what you say is true or false, this is a very sincere offer. Unfortunately, I am also interested in this bracelet and have no intention of selling it. Qinyu lightly said, so I refuse. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes widened and their faces filled with disbelief. This was disdain towards an alchemy grandmaster. It was no worse than directly slapping him in the face. Did he really not fear thoroughly angering Grandmaster Qi? Qi Yunshan suppressed his anger. Fellow Taoist, do you really not want to consider it? Qinyu reached out a hand. I will only say this once. Let go of the Mu family's uncle and nephew, and do not disturb them in the future. If you do, I will not pursue this matter any further. Big Pig's field of vision darkened. Big Brother, if you were in perfect condition, exterminating him would be as simple as crushing an ant. But now you're nothing more than a paper tiger. Be careful you don't go overboard and bury yourself. But he was well aware that with the situation at this step, Qin, you could only walk to the end. If he revealed the slightest weakness, he would immediately be exposed. Good, very good. Qi Yunshan gloomily said, I have no idea who you are, but since you have chosen to become my enemy, I will not back down even half a step. Hand over the bracelet. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Bang! A powerful aura burst forth from his body. Qinyu narrowed his eyes, a cold look on his face. The dignity of a superior was revealed, like a god from the highest heavens, making others feel awe and awe. Master Qi, Feng Qing suddenly said, I've already said that I hope the two of you can restrain yourselves and not have any conflicts in Sky, declaring Pavilion. I hope you can understand. Qi Yunshan was expressionless. Good, then I will go. Before his voice fell, he lifted a hand and a shadow flew out, exploding forth like an arrow. In an instant, this shadow arrived in front of Qinyu. It opened its mouth, revealing sharp fangs as it ruthlessly bit down at him. A fierce light flashed in Qi Yunshan's eyes, revealing madness and cruelty. With the Starlight Chain, his alchemy skills would rise to a whole new level, and he would become a true alchemy master. At that time, even great Tao realm existences would have to give him enough respect. Even if he provoked a powerful enemy, it would still be worth it. The energy that a true alchemy master could erupt with was enough to suppress a powerful sect or even an ancient inherited family clan. So, Qi Yunshan chose the right time to attack without hesitation. But the plot didn't develop in the direction he expected. The terrifyingly fast shadow's sharp fangs pierced through Qin Yu's skin. But then, as if it had been struck by a lightning crystal, it froze in place, as if an immobilizing technique had been used on it. A terrifying suppression that came from the bloodline level made it feel as if it were facing an invincible natural enemy. Fear gushed out from the depths of its soul, completely submerging its consciousness. All that was left was trembling and despair. Dragon bloodline monster spirit. Cries of alarm sounded out. Countless people looked at the gray shadow that was wrapped around Qin Yu's neck like a snake and covered in dragon scales. Their faces paled. When they looked at Qin Yu again, it was like they had discovered some unimaginable miracle. Their eyes filled with awe. Several drops of cold sweat appeared on Qin Yu's back. He didn't know what a dragon bloodline monster spirit was, but without a doubt, he had just passed through the gates of hell. Luckily, this thing seemed to be extremely afraid of the ancient race. After touching its blood, it was directly suppressed. He swore to himself that he would never do such a risky move again. The feeling of helplessness on the verge of death was incomparably disgusting. But on the surface, Qin Yu's complexion didn't change at all. His fingers steadily removed the dragon bloodline monster spirit from his neck. His tone was light and calm as he said, "What a naughty little fellow. It's a good thing you closed your mouth quickly, otherwise you would already be dead. I can forgive you, because this wasn't your original intention. But I will absolutely not allow you to offend me." Qin Yu looked up, his pitch-black eyes locking onto Qi Yinshan. The ice-cold intent in his eyes could freeze all and cause all things to fall into extinction. Bang! A terrifying aura was like a great slumbering beast awakening. It was like thousands of volcanoes erupting at the same time, looking down on the world with disdain and trampling 1,000,000,000,000 stars beneath their feet. The air suddenly became thick and viscous, submerging everyone like an invisible swamp. They withstood a terrifying pressure and were forced to stop breathing. Hum! Hum! Beneath the impact of this aura, the defensive strength that Sky Declaring Pavilion had set up was instantly activated. A brilliant divine light flashed, cold and dense. But this time, it could only shrink, not daring to approach Qin Yu at all. This was because the strength of the entire Great Array formation had been thoroughly suppressed. Qin Yu stared at Qi Yunshan, his voice so cold that it seemed to come from the depths of hell. "Tell me, how do you want to die?" The world fell deathly silent. Countless people froze where they were. Their hearts seemed to be grasped, and fear tumbled in their eyes. Peak calamity, immortal realm. No, this is an aura comparable to the great Tao realm. Feng Qing screamed in her heart, her complexion paling. She had once come into contact with these existences that stood at the peak of the world, and she became increasingly aware of just how terrifying they were. With a flip of their hand, they could annihilate trillions of lives with a single thought. Qi Yinshan felt as if he had fallen into an icy lake. His entire body seemed to freeze, unable to even think. But he was well aware just what sort of existence he had offended. Great Tao realm. It was actually the Great Tao realm. It was over. It was completely over. Even the entire Qi family would be implicated by him and suffer calamity. Great Tao realm. A low and deep voice suddenly echoed out. Fluctuations appeared in the imprisoned space, and the figure of a white-haired old man appeared. As he arrived, Sky Declaring Pavilion's suppressed array formation erupted with an even more formidable aura, instantly locking onto Qin Yu. Chapter 687. The oppressive aura that enveloped everyone was swept away. Feng Qing was pleasantly surprised. "Elder Zhao, why are you here?" "Old man, Su has made a breakthrough in his cultivation, so he has returned to his cave residence to cultivate in seclusion. I will temporarily replace him in patrolling the various places." Speaking of this, Elder Zhao revealed a trace of envy. He then smiled. "I heard that Miss was here. Thinking that we haven't seen each other for a long time, I rushed over through the teleportation array. I didn't expect to run into what happened today. Miss, please wait for a moment. I will deal with this person first." Qi Yinshan was overjoyed to have survived this desperate situation. "Old Zhao, this person dares to look down on the dignity of Sky Declaring Pavilion. We cannot let him off so easily." Elder Zhao's expression was indifferent. "Don't worry, Grandmaster Qi. I will be impartial." He looked at Qin Yu, his expression cold and harsh. "You may speak now." It was clear that if they didn't have a background that could cause Sky Declaring Pavilion to feel fear, today's matter would not be easily resolved. Countless eyes fell on Yu, and many of them revealed looks of pity and sympathy. Looking across the entire world, great Tao realm existences could be considered first-rate powerhouses. They could call upon the wind and summon the rain, and they could laugh proudly in all directions. However, this person's luck was truly terrible. He had actually bumped into the hands of Sky Declaring Pavilion's patrolling elder. Even if he didn't die today, he would at least lose a layer of skin. But what surprised everyone was that Yu's expression was still as calm as before, as if he didn't care at all about being suppressed. Could it be that he still had cards in his hand, that he didn't fear Sky Declaring Pavilion? Explain? In the silence, Yu slowly said, "Then, I wonder if Mr. Zhao is satisfied with this explanation." In his mind, Yu tried to recall the scene of him refining the chain of stars not too long ago and standing in the vast starry skies. He imagined himself to be one of those eternal and limitless stars that possessed infinite strength. On his finger, the ring of Lyre trembled. He crossed his hands behind his back and hid it in his sleeve. Immediately after, the aura emanating from his body skyrocketed once again. The space around him shook violently, as if countless ripples had been set off in a huge wave. Within his soul space, the chains of stars that wrapped around his soul suddenly emitted a faint starlight. They passed through his body and gathered around him. A vast and boundless aura that seemed to be able to contain and devour all emanated from his body like the endless starry sky above his head. Rumble! In the sky above Mount Wutong, all the clouds were instantly torn apart by an invisible force. The extremely bright sun dimmed, and one star after another appeared. Cold and mysterious starlight sprinkled down, condensing into a small figure that was neither male nor female. It was chanting an ethereal and reverent syllable, and a holy aura covered the sky and the earth. Divine Tao! Elder Zhao let out a low roar and almost bit off his own tongue. His mind rumbled as he fell into a state of confusion and panic. He had never thought that he would be able to face a supreme existence in the godly state today. Moreover, it was a heaven-defying existence that had gathered the stars in the sky and stepped onto the path of stars. No, this isn't the complete aura of the divine Tao. It doesn't seem to be complete, right? If I were to face a true existence of the divine Tao, then a single glance would be sufficient to make me lose all resistance. The person in front of him was a powerful being who had touched the threshold of the divine path and could step into it at any time. Perhaps he was currently traveling the world in search of an opportunity to break through and become a divine transformation cultivator. Looking at Yu's body that was shining with starlight, old Zhao had already thought of everything for him. He hurriedly bowed, his tone respectful and fearful. "I didn't know that divinity had arrived, and old Zhao has offended you. I ask that divinity consider my master's face and show mercy." Divine Tao, Feng Qing's eyes widened. Her heart instantly fell into a blank. Even with her status, she had never truly come into contact with a divine Tao existence. That was an existence that stood at the peak of this world. Their thoughts could overturn day and night, and with a wave of their hand, they could cause the world to lose color. Qi Yinshan's face was ashen. He fell to the ground, his body violently shivering, filled with endless fear. The divine Tao, it was actually a divine Tao existence. Such a great character only needed a single finger to completely erase him and the entire Qi family. Elder Lu Zhao was dripping with sweat, and his heart wildly raced. His robes were soaked and stuck to his body, leaving him in an extremely distressed state. If there was a medicine for regret, he would definitely eat a basket full of it. Damn it, who could tell him that this was clearly a trivial matter of finding a bracelet? So how did things develop to such a degree? Even a divine Tao powerhouse had appeared. Did things have to be so ridiculous? Elder Lu Zhao could only pray that he wouldn't be noticed. He hoped that this divine Tao existence would treat a minor character like him as if he were invisible and let him off. Bathed in starlight. He was like a divine god descending to the earth. His voice was low and deep, each syllable seeming to shake the void. If it weren't for the master of sky declaring pavilion, do you think your offenses against me would have been so easily forgiven? Elder Zhao paled. Thank you, Lord Divinity. Your magnanimity is like the vault of heaven, able to accommodate all living beings. The terrifying aura that flooded the world suddenly vanished, as if everything that happened just now were only an illusion. Elder Zhao's pupils shrank. As a veteran powerhouse of the great Dao realm, he already had the qualifications to come into contact with some secrets related to the divine Dao. The scene in front of him undoubtedly proved that this person had already truly grasped the key to stepping into the divine Tao and could make a breakthrough at any moment. Only like this could he control the might of the heavens and earth as he wished. And this sort of formidable control could only be achieved through the endless years, slowly accumulating it bit by bit. He was acquainted with his master, but he had no impression of this person at all. Of course, Elder Zhao was only a bit puzzled, but he didn't doubt this at all. He had already personally witnessed the aura of the divine Tao. That terrifying level couldn't be faked. Greetings, Lord Divinity. Elder Zhao half knelt on the ground. Walala, within sky declaring pavilion, everyone knelt on the ground. This was the transcendent reverence that a divine Tao existence should enjoy. Mu Xian had a dazed expression. She was dragged to her knees by her uncle, still in a daze. She never imagined that the senior who escorted her all the way here would be a legendary character. It was no wonder that senior didn't kill her to silence her. Thinking about it, he simply didn't think that killing Qi, Xingtian, and the others would be a problem. As for the reminder before they parted, it should have been simply because he didn't want other matters to affect his mood. Ancestors, bless us. Ancestors, bless us. Our Mu family finally has a chance to prosper again. Mu Tong's whispers caused Mu Xian to regain her composure. Mu Tong's murmur brought Mu Xian back to her senses. She raised her head and saw her uncle looking at her with a fanatical expression. Mu Xian, my dear grandaunt, you've performed a great merit this time. Our Mu family will have to rely on you in the future. Although she didn't understand the ways of the world, that didn't mean she was stupid. Mu Xian soon understood the meaning behind her uncle's words. But between her and Senior, their debts were already cleared. There was nothing else. Mu Xian's lips moved, but she didn't speak. She was well aware that after today's events, the Mu family was destined to be valued by others, to be related to a divine realm existence. Even if it was just a tiny bit of suspicion, it would be enough to extricate the Mu family from their current predicament. Mu Xian, a calm voice suddenly sounded out, startling her. Like a startled rabbit, her eyes widened as she looked at Qinyu. I like the gift you gave me very much. If you have any needs in the future, feel free to mention my name. Qinyu had already succeeded in showing off. Following the principle of not wasting anything, he pushed the boat with the current and thoroughly helped the Mu family. This could be considered his repayment for the chain of stars. Mu Tong's mind buzzed. Because of the rapid congealing of blood, he nearly fainted. Happiness had come too quickly. He wasn't prepared at all. The spring of their old Mu family had truly arrived. Countless envious eyes fell on the Mu family uncle and nephew. They were secretly calculating in their hearts that they had to find a way to pull closer to the Mu family. But no one was stupid enough to have any ideas about Mu Xian. Who knew just what sort of relationship she had with this person? Old Zhao respectfully said, Your Excellency, please rest assured that the Mu family will receive the protection of Sky declaring pavilion in the future. We will not disappoint you. His icy cold eyes swept over Qi Yunshan, revealing a deep loathing. It was all because of this bastard that they had nearly stirred up a great mess. Your Excellency, would you like to move to the next step? Qinyu nodded. His eyes swept around. I am traveling the world and do not wish to be disturbed by others. As for today's matters, let them rot in your stomach. With these words, everyone's thoughts of showing off were thoroughly extinguished. No one dared to ignore the warning of a divine realm powerhouse. A moment later, in the most luxurious room of Sky Declaring Pavilion, Qin Yu leaned back on a soft sofa, his eyes indifferently looking at Qi Yunshan, who was lying on the floor. Your Excellency, please spare me. Your Excellency, please spare me. Even Ant struggled to live, much less a character that was soon to become an alchemy grandmaster. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, he wouldn't give up. Old Zhao and Feng Qing respectfully stood to the side. They didn't look down on Qi Yunshan's performance at all. In order to live in front of a divine realm powerhouse, this wasn't a loss of face at all. It was just that they weren't optimistic about Qi Yunshan's struggle. The dignity of the divine realm could not be provoked. Only death and blood could atone for one's sins. Qi Yunshan, I do not wish to kill any more people right now. I will give you a chance. If you can complete it, I can spare your life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Qi Yunshan kowtowed. If you have any requests, please feel free to speak. I will die 10,000 deaths for you. Qin Yu lifted a hand and tapped Big Pig, who was lying on his shoulder. Big Pig lifted a hoof and tore open space, taking out a blood flame fruit. As old Zhao saw this, his pupils shrank. He felt even more awe towards this mysterious person in front of him. As for the blood flame fruit, although it was extremely precious, it was normal for someone of his status to take it out. With these 3 blood flame fruits as the main ingredient and supplemented with other materials, can you refine a pill with mild medicinal properties that can be eaten by ordinary people? Of course, the medicinal effects must be maintained. Qi Yunshan's voice trembled. Don't worry, I am confident in my abilities. It's just that refining the pill requires some precious materials that I don't have on hand. Old Zhao bowed. I ask that you give Sky Declaring Pavilion a chance to make up for its mistakes. As for the other materials needed to refine the pill, we will provide them. Qin Yu nodded, indifferent. That's fine. I'll do as you say. He looked at Qi Yunshan and lifted a finger. You only have half a day. I will leave before nightfall. His eyes swept over old Zhao. You wouldn't tell your master that I am here, right? Old Zhao's face stiffened. He reluctantly said, No one dares to go against your will. Very good. Qin Yu stood up. Prepare a quiet room for me to rest in. Do not let anyone disturb me. Feng Qing hurriedly said, Please follow me. Subconsciously, he brought Qin Yu to the best resting room in Sky Declaring Pavilion. As he watched the door close, he suddenly cried out. Old Zhao's complexion changed. What is it? Feng Qing's face flushed red. She shook her head. It's nothing. Last night, she had rested here. There were specialized cleaners here, but the clothes she had changed into after washing up yesterday had been left in the bathroom. She could only pray that this person wouldn't see her personal clothes. With Qin Yu's cautious personality, even if his acting was perfect, he still wouldn't be negligent. Thus, he naturally had to inspect her clothes in the room. Thus, Feng Qing's prayers weren't of any use. Looking at the girl's clothes on the wooden rack, Qin Yu subconsciously thought of 4 words. Light, small, thin, and transparent. After enduring the awkwardness of inspecting her clothes, Qin Yu pulled Zhu Dagong away. He let out a long breath, a bitter smile on his face. At this time, he still had the mind to pay attention to such things. What a bastard. Qin Yu suppressed these thoughts and sat down at the table. He ordered Zhu Dagong to take out a blood flame fruit. Chapter 688. The status of a divine Tao was enough to arouse awe in others. This isolated chamber was the safest place right now. Qin Yu certainly wouldn't waste a half a day. He had to wait for Qi Yunshan to refine pills. No matter how good a bluff was, it didn't have any real meaning. Only by restoring his own strength could he truly rely on. Qin Yu was well aware of this. The blood flame fruit was truly worthy of its reputation as a supreme body-strengthening treasure. Wherever that incomparably hot current swept through, the tiny cracks in his flesh and blood rapidly healed. Of course, this was also because Qin Yu's mortal body was powerful enough to withstand the strength of the blood flame fruit. If it were anyone else, their mortal body would have been burnt to ashes. His severely damaged mortal body was like the cracked earth beneath the blazing sun. It greedily and hungrily absorbed the strength of the blood flame fruit. In a short 2 hours, the strength of the first blood flame fruit had been completely consumed. Qin Yu's eyes flashed open. Without hesitation, he took out a second blood flame fruit and ate it. The boiling hot current that had calmed down began to rampage once more. At the same time, deep rumbling sounds emitted from within Qin Yu's body. Although it wasn't intense, it contained a formidable will that shook the heart. Traces of the annihilating space strength entrenched in his flesh and blood were constantly peeled off and expelled from his body. The space around Qin Yu shattered, forming a horrifying spiderweb. Schwa. When the strength of the second fruit was completely absorbed, Qin Yu's eyes flashed open, a sharp light flashing within them. He reached out a hand and slapped the ground, standing up. As he moved, his bones emitted explosive crackling sounds. Strength flowed through his body. Although there was still a great disparity from a complete recovery, it was much better than before. If he could eat 3 blood flame fruits at once, the effects would be much better. But Qin Yu didn't regret his actions. Even if he could go back in time and make a choice again, he would still take out a blood flame fruit to save old Leaf Zhou without hesitation. The reason that people were human was that their hearts were filled with good and evil. There were some things that had to be done. If he couldn't even adhere to this point, how different was he from a beast? He looked up at the clock. Qin Yu adjusted to his restored strength and pushed open the door to the restroom. Feng Qing was waiting anxiously outside. She hurriedly saluted, "Greetings, Your Excellency." Her face was flushed, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Qin Yu suddenly realized that the clothes in the bathroom were hers. His eyes subconsciously swept over Feng Qing's body, and the image of her wearing those clothes appeared in his mind. Cough. Has Qi Yinshan finished refining the pill? Feng Qing hurriedly said, "Reporting to Your Excellency, the pill refinement is going smoothly and will be completed very soon." She couldn't see anything strange from Qin Yu's face, so she could only suppress her thoughts. "Your Excellency, please wait in the room for a moment. I will confirm it immediately." Qin Yu nodded. "All right." An hour later, Qi Yinshan, whose face was pale as if he had been squeezed dry by 10 pigs for an entire night, arrived at the box. He half knelt on the ground and said, "I didn't fail the mission. I have already refined the pill. I ask that you examine it." Along with the jade bottle containing the medicinal pill, a jade slip introducing the medicinal pill was also delivered into his hand. Qin Yu opened the bottle and sniffed it. He didn't touch the jade slip. "Since you have refined the pill, I am a man of my word. I will forgive you this time." Qi Yinshan trembled with excitement. "Thank you, Your Excellency." His field of vision darkened, and he fainted. It could be seen that in just half a day, he had exhausted all of his mental energy in order to refine this bottle of pill. Qin Yu glanced at him and lightly said, "I will also be leaving. There's no need to send me off." He stood up and walked out. Elder Zhao relaxed. He thought that this mysterious Qin Yu was actually quite reasonable. If he had used his divine Tao methods to break through the shackles and leave, then the entire defensive array formation of Sky Declaring Pavilion would have been destroyed. It seemed that by taking the initiative to use Sky Declaring Pavilion's name to take out the materials needed for the pill, he had managed to calm this Qin Yu's anger. This was good, this was good. Elder Zhao's heart ached for taking out so many precious materials. Now all of that had completely vanished. To resolve the dissatisfaction of a formidable existence that was destined to step into the divine Tao. Although these materials were precious, they weren't anything at all. Farewell. He and Feng Qing bowed in respect. Qin Yu left Sky Declaring Pavilion through a secret door. His steps were steady as he walked outwards. It was only when he left everyone's line of sight that he quickened his pace. When he emerged from an alley, he controlled the flesh and blood of his face to change into another ordinary face. Then, he mixed into the crowd and left Wudong Mountain. With a thought, the swarm of ants howled over, lifting Qin Yu up and taking him away at their fastest speed. It was only now that Qin Yu let out a long breath of relief. Luckily, The will of the divine Tao was terrifying enough that no one dared to casually violate it. Otherwise, if a true divine Tao existence were to be drawn in, that would be far more troublesome. Wali Village. The granny looked at the unconscious old man lying on the bed, her eyes filled with helplessness and fear. Perhaps it was because they had helped each other for so many years, but between the two old people, there seemed to be some sort of strange telepathic connection. She could faintly feel that the old man's life was constantly fading away. As time passed, he was slowly approaching death, and today should be his limit. The granny's hands trembled as she grasped the old man's hand. Her voice was weak and hoarse, as if she were saying something to him. In this life, you have never despised me for being a mute. You have always been good to me and respected me. I am grateful to you from the bottom of my heart. Don't be afraid. Everyone has to welcome death. On the road to the Yellow Springs, I won't let you walk alone. Wait for me. To be able to spend a lifetime with you and even die on the same day, this old woman is already satisfied. Tears flowed out from the corners of the granny's eyes, but she actually calmed down. She sat on a wooden chair in front of the bed, looking at the unconscious old man as she waited for the final moment to arrive. Suddenly, the courtyard doors were pushed open from the outside. Then, there was the sound of hurried footsteps. The granny was in a trance. It was only when the doors were pushed open that she turned to look. All of a sudden, her eyes widened. Chinyu smiled. "Granny, I'm back. Don't worry, nothing will happen to the old man." 3 days later, there was also the somewhat weak old man Zhou. He was lying on a chair, covered with clothes, basking in the sun as he directed Chinyu to do some woodwork. "Since I promised someone, I must do it. This work has already been delayed, so I must finish it as soon as possible." Chinyu smiled and agreed. "Don't worry. Although I have never done woodwork before, with your guidance, I will definitely be able to do it well." "Of course. Don't you know who is guiding you? I'm the top woodworker in the surrounding villages. If you can learn my craft, you won't have to worry about food or drink for the rest of your life." The granny brought over some medicinal soup. She looked at the bragging old man and opened her mouth to say a few words. Chinyu didn't understand what she meant, but the old man's face flushed red. I know. I won't go out and take on random jobs in the future. I've said it dozens of times already. Don't you find it annoying?" He grumbled, but his expression was a bit guilty. He took the medicinal soup and drank it all in a few mouthfuls. It was so bitter that his eyes rolled back. He grabbed a few tea leaves and tossed them into his mouth, chewing to counteract the bitterness of the soup. The granny glared at him and put away the bowl. Soon, she returned with a cup of milky milk tea. She smiled and handed it to Chinyu. "Thank you, Granny." Chinyu drank large mouthfuls of the fragrant and sweet milk tea, a look of contentment on his face. Life had finally returned to the right track. But just as this thought appeared, he revealed a stunned expression. When did he think that this was the right track of his life? Indeed, deep in his bones, he had always longed for this sort of peaceful and tranquil life. But reality was always cruel. Chinyu was well aware that his ordinary life would soon come to an end. After eating 2 blood flame fruits, he had restored a portion of his mortal body's strength and was now comparable to the early Blue Sea realm. With the help of the purple-back blue-wing ants, it wouldn't be easy for others to kill him as long as he was careful. Chinyu had to leave this place and return to the dangerous world of cultivators. He had to find a way to restore his wounds and pursue greater strength. That smelly whore, that damn smelly whore, I will kill her. I will definitely kill her. The youth lying on the bed, besides having a pale complexion, was undoubtedly handsome. But now his entire face was twisted and filled with endless hatred. The cultivator that was treating his lower body's wounds was covered with beads of sweat. After a long time, he finally finished cleaning up. He allowed a long breath and quickly withdrew from the inner room. "How is the situation?" the white sideburned cultivator asked, his expression dignified. The treating cultivator bowed. "Elder, the situation isn't too good." Because he was caught off guard, he suffered the explosion of an artifact. Young Master Fang's cultivation isn't strong enough to resist it, and his lower body has been severely damaged. I can only give him some simple treatment so that his wounds don't worsen any further. The white sideburned cultivator's lips twitched. If he could, he really wished he could strangle this bastard in the room. It was fine if he played with a woman and forced himself on her, but didn't he know how to be more careful? Yet, he was actually reduced to such a state by a woman who had just stepped onto the path of cultivation. He was simply trash. But this trash's background wasn't one to provoke. He took a deep breath and said, "No matter the cost, we must maintain his injuries. I will think of a way to deal with what happens next." The treating cultivator respectfully nodded. "Teacher, it looks like we can't hide this any longer. Do you need me to notify them now?" A youth respectfully asked. Yu Qing rubbed his temples and nodded, a tired look on his face. "Immediately send a message and tell them the truth about his injuries. This is a disaster he caused himself, so we can't be the ones to pay for it." Even so, whenever he thought of that young Miss Cold Eyes, he still felt a headache. The youth's face darkened, as if he felt the same pressure as his teacher. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Junior apprentice sister, Ali, is waiting outside. Teacher, what do you think?" Yu Qing frowned. He immediately said, "Let's go see her first." Outside the temple, Ali's face was pale. Her body was still stained with blood, but there was no fear in her eyes. "Teacher," she bowed. Yu Qing said in a low voice, "You were too careless. You clearly knew what kind of person Feng Yang was, so why did you give him a chance to be alone with you?" Ali bit her lips. "I'm sorry, teacher. I was too careless." Yu Qing let out a deep breath. "It's too late to say these things now. But this matter isn't your fault. I will testify for you. Go back and rest. Don't feel any pressure." Ali's eyes were red. She respectfully bowed. "Thank you, teacher. I've troubled you." She turned and left. The youth behind her tried to suppress the surprise in his eyes. In his impression, this teacher, who was conservative and fair on the surface, was actually a completely different person in private. Find someone to watch over him. Before that young miss arrives, don't let anything happen to her. The youth let out a sigh of relief. Sure enough, this was the style of the teacher he was familiar with. The abnormality, just now, was hard to accept. "Yes, I will give the order now." Yu Qing watched him leave. A dark cloud appeared on his face. He couldn't help but curse in a low voice. That idiot Feng Yang had ruined his preparations. This new female disciple was originally prepared by him for himself. But now that this matter had become so big, someone would definitely find out. It was impossible to enjoy her alone. In order to prevent her from falling into the hands of the sect master and becoming a bargaining chip for him to break through, he could only destroy her. But he couldn't do this himself. Borrowing the hands of that young miss was undoubtedly the best reason. In this matter, no one in the sect would risk offending her to voice any objections. With a flick of his sleeves, Yu Qing walked away. His back was straight and his expression was solemn. His bright eyes were filled with determination. Chapter 689. Feng Qing looked at her younger clan brother, who had taken medicine and was sleeping soundly. A cold light surged in the depths of her eyes. If Feng Yang wasn't the only remaining male descendant of the Feng family, she would have personally cleaned him up. "Who?" She let out a light breath and turned to leave. When she appeared in front of everyone, her expression had already calmed down. "Elder Yu Qing, I'll have to trouble you with this matter." Yu Qing had a solemn expression. "I should apologize to Miss Feng Qing. I wasn't able to take care of Feng Yang, allowing him to be seduced by my disciple and suffer such serious injuries." He paused for a moment and continued to say, "Miss Feng Qing, please rest assured that my sect will severely punish this matter. We will not tolerate it in the least." Feng Qing's expression was indifferent, although she knew that the fault in this matter was absolutely on Feng Yang. But as the only male descendant of the Feng family, Feng Yang, who was destined to become the future head of the Feng family, could not bear such a bad reputation. "I'll have to trouble Elder Yu Qing." A plain voice came from his mouth, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion, as if this was a trivial matter not worth mentioning. Feng Qing secretly mocked herself. She had always prided herself on being noble and pure, but perhaps she was no different from these people. Yu Qing looked across at the dark and gloomy expressions of the sect master and the other elders. A faint smile lifted the corners of his lips. Miss Amber's feelings, please stay in the sect for the time being. I will announce the final decision at the sect meeting. This was another gift. In front of all the cultivators in the sect, he would use the name of the sect to clear Feng Yang's name. Even if someone doubted him afterwards, they wouldn't dare to say a single word. This would seal the coffin. As for Zhou Li, although her physique was special and she had good potential, she could only blame herself for being too ordinary. In this world, being ordinary in itself was also a mistake. Gently nodding, Feng Qing didn't say anything more. She looked up at the lush green outside the window. It was clearly a scene full of vitality, but in her eyes, it was filled with a rotten smell. An immortal with a sword came from Depression Village. He stopped right above old Zhou's home. Everyone said that the girl, Ali, had made a name for herself outside and wanted to bring the old couple out of the mountain to enjoy a happy life. TSK. The Zhou family's girl is obviously a lucky girl since she was young. I noticed it a long time ago, just as I expected. No wonder she looks down on the boys from outside the village. Little girl Zhou is a phoenix in a chicken's nest. She is destined to fly far away. Now, old Zhou and his wife are going to live a good life. In their old age, their granddaughter has actually grown up. Perhaps this is God's compensation to them. Countless people's eyes were shining with envy, and their mouths were muttering. They wished they could go over and see the grace of the immortal with their own eyes, but they were so afraid that they could only stay at home. He was an immortal that could fly. If he were to accidentally break a taboo, he would definitely die. Li Wei stood on the azure cloud sword with his hands behind his back. His azure robes fluttered in the wind, giving off an ethereal aura. He looked down at the three lowly mortals in the courtyard below. He frowned, his eyes filled with arrogance. Are you Zhou Li's relatives? Elder Zhou forced himself to remain calm and respectfully said, reporting to Immortal, we are. Li Wei coldly said, Zhou Li encountered an accident while she was cultivating in the sect, so she needs relatives to go. Choose one of you to go with me. The old man hurriedly asked, what happened to Ali? Humph. Matters of the immortal path aren't things you can spy on. There is no time to waste. I must go back and report. Li Wei coldly said, grabbing his grandmother's trembling hand. Elder Zhou took a deep breath. He turned to Qin Yu and said, little Qin, go with the immortal. Qin Yu hesitated for a moment before slowly nodding. Li Wei frowned. Who is he? Can he represent your Zhou family? Elder Zhou said, immortal. He is Ali's fiancé. He is the closest to her. Fiancé? Li Wei's complexion sank. He swept his eyes over him. That woman Zhou Li was so proud, but she had actually found a country bumpkin like this? Was he even worthy? Jealousy rose in his heart, but he soon sneered inwardly. This matter had already spread throughout the sect. Although the rumor said that Feng Yang hadn't succeeded, who knew the truth? A golden core realm cultivator couldn't deal with a mere rookie that had just entered the cultivation world. It was likely he had already eaten her up. If it weren't for her carelessness afterwards, how could Feng Yang have been schemed against? Li Wei thought back to how he had been rejected without hesitation. His heart filled with joy and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Once this brat learned the truth, his expression would surely be marvelous. Let's go. With a trace of impatience, Li Wei flicked his sleeves and pulled Qin Yu behind him. He formed a law formula, and the blue cloud sword pierced through the skies. This cultivator has a nascent soul realm cultivation, but his aura is several times thicker than any nascent soul I know of. Moreover, he has many treasures on him, and the flying magic sword beneath his feet is of high quality. It matches with his cultivation method and can increase his strength by several levels. Qin Yu looked at Li Wei, who was standing in front of him with his hands crossed behind his back. He silently estimated his strength. He certainly had no interest in such a small cultivator. He was simply using this person to estimate the strength of Ali's cultivation sect. Although Li Wei didn't say anything, Qin Yu could sense a trace of coldness from his attitude. It seemed that something had happened to Ali. It was because of this that Qin Yu agreed to take old Master Zhou's place on this trip. If there really was something wrong, then perhaps there was a chance he could resolve it. He hoped that things wouldn't be too troublesome. Sensing Qin Yu's silence behind him, Li Wei's lips curled up in disdain. What an ignorant country bumpkin. He must have been frightened to death. Perhaps I could be a bit faster. With a thought, he stimulated his magic power. The blue cloud soared emitted a humming sound, and the blue light it emitted became even brighter, increasing its speed. From this change, Qin Yu could sense Li Wei's thoughts. His face immediately revealed a look of panic, and he paled. For a nascent soul cultivator to have such a poor temperament, it seemed that although this world's cultivation level was high, it was because it was far too easy to obtain strength. Perhaps it was because cultivating one's temperament was relatively weak. If he were to fight with the cultivators of this world in the future, this would be a key point he could use to his advantage. As he was silently thinking, there was a sudden cry. It carried with it a formidable, penetrating strength, piercing through his eardrums and straight into his soul. "White-headed demon vulture!" Li Wei screamed out. It was only after a moment of shock that he reacted. He hurriedly took out a jade token, pouring magic power into it. The mark within the jade token was immediately activated. Light erupted in the air, condensing into the words Truewood. My status token is only at the nascent soul realm. The pressure it emits isn't enough to scare away the white-headed demon vulture. Moreover, it is a demonic creature that is bloodthirsty and murderous. Its mind is chaotic, and it might ignore the aura of the sect token. I'm finished. How could I encounter a horrifying white-headed demon vulture in such a place? Li Wei's face paled, and his eyes filled with fear. The white-headed demon vulture really didn't seem to notice the aura of the Truewood sect's token. Its eyes flashed with a blood-red light, and it fiercely leapt forwards. My life is over. Li Wei had a look of despair. At this time, the petrified Qin Yu behind him suddenly looked up. His pitch-black eyes were like an abyss as he stared at the white-headed demon vulture. The demonic monster beast stiffened, as if it had been greatly frightened. It flapped its wings and crazily fled into the distance. Li Wei froze in place. It took him a long time to react. I'm still alive. I'm actually still alive. Thank the heavens and earth. He took a deep breath and pretended to be calm. He put away the token and wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead. You damned feathered beast. It's a good thing you ran away fast. Otherwise, I would have cut you down on the spot. His eyes swept over Qin Yu. As he saw Qin Yu's awe and worship in his eyes, Li Wei let out a sigh of relief, and his movements became even calmer. He formed a law formula, and the blue cloud sword raced away. The rest of the journey proceeded smoothly. It was just that the speed of a nascent soul realm cultivator was far too slow. It took them nearly an entire day to arrive at the Truewood Sect station. The several large mountains in front of them were filled with a lush green color, and the world was filled with a vibrant vitality. When combined with the words Truewood, it wasn't hard to guess that this sect cultivated some sort of wood attribute cultivation method. Qin Yu's inspection of the sect fell into Li Wei's eyes, and he was naturally stunned. Now that his mission had been completed, he no longer concealed the ridicule in his voice. There will be a great sect meeting tomorrow. You can stay here for the day. He tossed Qin Yu into a remote corner that seemed to be where the sect's servants lived, and then left. The servant leader, who had been bowing and smiling all this time, suddenly straightened his back and looked down at Qin Yu. You are Zhou Li's fiancé? Hee, that woman is quite unyielding. The servant leader looked at Qin Yu several times with ill intentions. Then he waved his hand and said, Take him away and take good care of him. Tomorrow, at the great sect meeting, this boy would need to appear. Although he was only going through the motions and was just a minor character, it was best not to take any risks. After tomorrow, when the dust settled, if anyone remembered who this boy was, they could slowly take care of him. That young Master Feng Yang had already said that no matter who it was that came from the Zhou family, they shouldn't think of returning in one piece. Although this young master was a bit of an idiot, he was actually quite generous. Since such a good thing had fallen into his lap, he couldn't miss out on it. Although he couldn't do what he was good at, he could at least punish him. Tonight, this boy wouldn't be able to sleep comfortably, and he wouldn't have the energy to mess around tomorrow. As the servant thought of this, he revealed a smug look. "Brat, you will sleep in the firewood room tonight. Once all the firewood has been chopped up, consider it your room fee for tonight." A big bald man with a black iron chain clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. He was as strong as a wild bull, and he grinned viciously. "If you dare to be lazy, I will let you taste what despair is." Chinyu paled in panic. He nodded again and again. With a loud bang, the door to the firewood room was closed and locked from the outside. As he listened to the footsteps fade away, Chinyu straightened himself. He frowned and swept his eyes around the firewood room. Great sect meeting. It seemed that Ali had really stirred up a great deal of trouble, or perhaps she had provoked someone that needed to be treated with such importance. Unfortunately, he didn't know what was going on right now. Even if he wanted to prepare ahead of time, he couldn't. He could only make plans tomorrow. If this matter was within the scope of his ability, he would do his best to save her. But if he couldn't, to lose a daughter-in-law in their middle age and their only grandson in their old age, such a blow was far too cruel for these two old people. Chinyu let out a light breath. I hope there will be a turn for the better. In order to avoid any unexpected complications, he picked up the filthy hatchet and walked towards the pile of firewood that was several people high. Kacha! Kacha! The sound of wood being chopped constantly echoed through the room. It wasn't until the next day that it finally ended. Chinyu groggily slept for some time before he was rudely awakened. After hastily washing up, he was brought in front of the servant leader with a tired expression. The servant leader seemed satisfied. He darkly smiled and said, "Let's meet again in a bit. Send him out." Li Wei lifted Chinyu and used his magic power to rush forwards. Soon, he arrived at Square. At this time, many cultivators were gathered here, but no one spoke. The atmosphere was low and solemn. But now, everyone's eyes were focused on Chinyu. There was coldness, ridicule, sympathy, but even more indifference. To these lofty cultivators, a lowly mortal didn't have the qualifications to attract their attention. Moreover, he was destined to fall into the abyss forever. When they arrived at the entrance of the hall, Li Wei let go of Chinyu. He respectfully said, "Sect Master, elders, I have brought Zhou Li's fiancé." After a brief pause, a deep and dignified voice echoed out from the hall. "Bring him in." Li Wei hurriedly nodded. He said to Chinyu, "The sect master has summoned him. Hurry and enter." Chinyu had a panicked expression. He nearly tripped over the door and stumbled in. His eyes swept around the hall, and then he lowered his head in panic. Although his cultivation hadn't been restored, Chinyu still had his eyesight. Moreover, the people in the hall didn't seem to be hiding their auras at all. The one sitting in the center of the hall should be the master of the True Wood sect. This person's aura was like an unfathomable vortex, as if he were one with the heavens and earth. He gave off an incomparably mystical feeling. But compared to old Zhao from Sky Declaring Pavilion, he was much weaker. It was likely that he had just touched upon the great Tao realm and hadn't completed his breakthrough. There were 7 men and women sitting on chairs on either side of him. Each one of them was at the Calamity Immortal realm, and 3 of them gave Chinyu a tremendous pressure. Chinyu's heart skipped a beat. He thought to himself that this was truly fierce. This was only a small sect, and yet they had a strength no weaker than the Holy Emperor Palace. On the stage, a man with white sideburns stood up. He was one of the 3 people that gave Chinyu a sense of pressure. His face was square and solemn. After Zhou Li entered the True Wood sect, I pitied her for her lowly background, and yet she never lost her heart to improve herself. Thus, I accepted her as my disciple. But I never imagined that in order to achieve her goals, she would resort to any means possible and use her beauty to seduce my outstanding disciple, Feng Yang, causing him to suffer severe wounds and nearly lose his life. As he spoke, his voice was harsh and his eyes were icy cold. Thus, I order people to bring people from the Zhou family here to listen to the punishment, to show that my true wood sect is impartial and impartial. Since you're Zhou Li's fiancé, you also have the qualifications to be here. If you have any objections to the result, you may speak up to refute them. Yu Qing flicked his sleeves and shouted, "Men, bring that evil disciple, Zhou Li, to the hall, and let her accept the severe punishment of the sect's laws." With the sound of shackles, Zhou Li took off her disciple's robes and entered the hall wearing only her white clothes. She tried to straighten her back, but as if she had touched the wounds on her body, faint traces of red seeped out, appearing particularly eye-catching on her new white clothes. Chapter 690. I'm not guilty. Jolie bit her lips and stared at her teacher. You know the truth of the matter, so why do you have to distort the truth and slander me? Yu Qing's face was solemn. I only believe in evidence. I won't be biased just because you are my disciple. His eyes shined with a heavy pressure. Jolie, the sect has already investigated this matter, and the evidence is conclusive. Do you still want to deny it? Jolie's eyes turned blank, and she instinctively revealed a look of fear. But soon, she bit down on her lips and broke free from the pressure on her mind. Teacher, I am extremely disappointed in you and the entire True Wood sect. Did you do this just because Feng Yang came from a noble background and I came from a lowly mortal family? She saw her own fate and her heart turn cold. But since she couldn't avoid death in the end, what was there to fear? Her eyes were ice cold. She swept her eyes over the grand hall and the sanctimonious cultivators. Jolie said, "You are not worthy of being called immortals." Because this was the grand sect meeting, everything within the grand hall could be sensed by the cultivators in the square. At this time, all of their eyes widened in shock. This Jolie's courage was greater than they imagined. She would die today, but as they listened to her words, they couldn't help but feel a bit of bitterness in their hearts. What if the one in Jolie's position was one of them? They feared the result would be the same. How insolent! Yu Qing roared out loud, his eyes twitching. He never thought that Jolie would be able to resist the pressure he exerted on her mind. Her words were like a slap to his face in front of everyone. Feeling the sect master's mocking gaze from above, Yu Qing took a deep breath. Jolie, your fiancé, is also in the grand hall right now. Husband and wife are one. If you refuse to plead guilty, I will start a second round of investigation. Once I obtain enough evidence, I will have your fiancé punished together with you. Jolie, think about it carefully. Will you plead guilty or not? Everyone cursed inwardly at how shameless she was. She even dared to use threats. This was simply beneath her status. Yu Qing was expressionless, as if he didn't see the gazes around him. He had to quickly resolve this mahjong matter. If this dragged on for too long, then he would only lose more face. If this became a farce, not only would his plan to befriend Feng Qing fail, but he would also deeply offend her. Fiancé, Jolie revealed a vacant look. He followed everyone's gaze and saw Qin Yu standing in a corner of the hall with a panicked look on his face. It was him. "You, why are you here?" She suddenly panicked. He couldn't possibly think that she had been touched by Feng Yang, could it? For some reason, the young girl who had been able to sneer at all the high-level cultivators in the hall suddenly felt a little flustered. Then, she felt wronged and her eyes began to redden. Qin Yu trembled and said, "The immortal said something happened to you, so the old man asked me to follow you." Looking at his pale and fearful face, the turbulent emotions in Zhou Li's heart suddenly disappeared completely. That's right, Qin Yu was only an ordinary person. Facing these lofty and powerful cultivators, it wasn't easy for him to remain standing. It was impossible for him to be someone she could rely on. Perhaps right now, he was afraid that he would be implicated by her. Jolie took a deep breath, and his expression became cold again. "How are Grandpa and Grandma?" "Good, very good." "Then I can rest assured." Jolie looked away. She looked at Yu Qing. "Teacher, I admit my guilt. With how shameless the True Wood sect was, even if they investigated again, the results wouldn't change. They would only implicate Qin Yu and send him to his death. Whatever, that ash threadgrass was given to her by him. Consider this as returning his favor. From now on, she no longer owed him anything. The Truewood sect's great assembly had already begun, but Feng Qing arrived late. In her opinion, slandering the innocence of an innocent woman and even causing her death was nothing more than a dirty transaction. She instinctively rejected this. But regretfully, Feng Qing was one of the parties involved in this transaction. No matter what she thought in her heart, she had to appear and complete her response to the Truewood sect. I have received your goodwill and will naturally repay you in the future. Her chest tumbled and her face paled. But her expression didn't change at all. She indifferently walked into the room. Through an array formation she had arranged ahead of time, she could see every corner of the hall. In these past years, she had already tempered a beautiful but cold smile and a heart as firm as stone. Miss Feng Qing, Jolie has admitted her guilt. The Truewood sect cultivator leading the way turned around with a smile. Feng Qing nodded without expression. She wasn't surprised by this result. How could a weak girl with no background possibly avoid the tacit malice of the entire sect? Jolie, was that her name? Feng Qing silently remembered this in her heart. She wouldn't interfere with today's outcome, but after the storm was over, she could give some compensation to her family, just like what she had done before. Looking at the array formation projection, Feng Qing saw Jolie's appearance. This was a tenacious and proud woman. In a trance, Feng Qing seemed to see herself in her early years. She had no one to rely on, and she had clenched her teeth and endured. Suddenly, Feng Qing sat up straight. This was because in the array formation projection, she saw a figure that shouldn't have appeared here, no matter what. With a flick of her sleeves, the array formation projection rapidly zoomed in. The man in the projection revealed a look of panic and astonishment. This person completely overlapped with the figure in her memories. Their movements and aura didn't have any similarities. Was it just a coincidence that their appearances were similar? No, this wasn't just similarity. Between their eyebrows, eyes, mouth, and nose, they were completely the same. Feng Qing took a deep breath. She lifted a finger and asked, "Who is this person?" The Truewood sect cultivator respectfully said, reporting to Miss Feng Qing, "This person is called Qin Yu. He is Jolie's fiancé. My Truewood sect has always been fair. Even if the other party is an ordinary mortal, we will allow their family to attend the trial to ensure that there are no objections to the result." After he finished speaking, he saw that Feng Qing didn't respond. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "Does Miss Feng Qing recognize this person? If this were true, then things would be troublesome." "Who?" Feng Qing suddenly stood up and quickly walked out. Several Truewood sect cultivators were stunned for a moment before they hurriedly followed behind. They watched helplessly as Feng Qing passed through several long corridors. Then, with a flash of light, she flew straight towards the great hall where the great sect meeting was being held. In the square, the Truewood sect cultivators, some with indifference, some with sneers, and some with complex expressions, suddenly saw a woman fly towards them. Her long skirt fluttered in the wind, her posture like that of an immortal, beautiful beyond compare. She landed at the entrance to the great hall. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. Before Yu Qing could smile, he saw a figure flash at the entrance of the great hall. He subconsciously stiffened and hurriedly said, "Miss Feng Qing, how come you are here?" Jolie has already pleaded guilty, so I was just about to announce her punishment. Although everyone was well aware of what had happened with Jolie, Feng Qing's appearance here in broad daylight was still a bit bad. It was like ripping away the cloth covering everyone's faces and exposing the darkness and filth within. Everyone said that sky-declaring pavilion's Feng Qing was intelligent, but why was she so stupid today? She actually ran here. Wouldn't it have been better for her to just stay in her room and watch, waiting for the dust to settle? The smile on Yu Qing's face unknowingly stiffened as he thought to himself. It was her? Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. Looking at Feng Qing, who had suddenly rushed in, he faintly guessed that today's situation might be related to her. As he thought about how Zhou Li had directly pleaded guilty in order to protect him, he sighed inwardly and looked towards the entrance of the Great Hall. Their gazes met in midair. Feng Qing's heart seemed to be grasped by a silent hand, instantly confirming Qing Yu's identity. It was him, the mysterious person who had appeared at Wudong Mountain. But why had he appeared here and become Zhou Li's fiancé? And more importantly, with his divine Tao level cultivation, he could crush the entire true Wood sect in a powder with just a thought. So why was he acting like this? Countless thoughts raced through Feng Qing's mind. She looked away, and a vague guess appeared in her mind. This might be an opportunity for him. Feng Qing was absolutely worthy of Yu Qing's previous impression of her. Her thoughts stirred, and she immediately made a decision. She lightly coughed. Then, facing all the true Wood sect cultivators in the Great Hall, she slowly said, "I interrogated Feng Yang just now, and he admitted that he intended to harm Miss Zhou Li. Miss Zhou Li resisted him and accidentally detonated an artifact, causing her to be severely wounded." Feng Qing's expression was sincere. "Miss Zhou Li, I solemnly apologize to you here. Concerning this matter, I will severely punish Feng Yang and give you sufficient compensation. I don't ask you to forgive him, but I hope that I can make it up to you a little." The entire Great Hall fell deathly silent. All the true Wood sect cultivators stared with wide eyes, their jaws nearly falling to the ground. If it weren't for everyone having the same expression, they would have thought they were hallucinating. The script wasn't supposed to be like this. "Miss Feng Qing, how could you be like this? Our true Wood sect doesn't even care about face anymore, and even went all out to slander our own disciple in order to establish a friendly relationship with you and carry out multifaceted cooperation. Now that we've finished being the villain, you suddenly jump out and flip over the entire plate, directly apologizing and making amends. Where do you want us to put our face? People often say that they burn the bridge after crossing the river, but you haven't even crossed the river, yet you directly cut off the bridge and threw it into the water. You can't play around like this." Yu Qing froze in place. It took a great deal of effort for him to squeeze out a smile that was uglier than crying. "Miss Feng Qing, are you feeling unwell?" Cough, cough. Regarding this matter, Zhou Li has already pleaded guilty. As he spoke, he emphasized the last sentence. There was nothing he could do about it. Things had already come to this, so how could he turn back? After all, he had been the one in charge of this matter from beginning to end. Feng Qing looked at him, her tone faint. "I know, but Miss Zhou Li only pleaded guilty because she had no other choice." Yu Qing's complexion paled. He didn't know what had gone wrong, but there was one thing he was sure of. After today, he would become a laughing stock within True Wood sect. "Damn it, Feng Qing, just what were you doing?" His eyes darkened. Yu Qing began to consider what sort of situation he would face if he shredded all pretense of cordiality with her. But as he thought about it, he felt discouraged. The strength of Sky declaring pavilion wasn't something he could contend with. He could only forcefully suppress the tumbling rage in his heart. In the main seat of honor, the True Wood sect master revealed a look of disdain and disappointment. He had hoped that Yu Qing would lose all reason so that he could eliminate a rival that coveted his position. But even though he hadn't completely achieved his expectations, he was still satisfied with today's situation. With a light cough, the True Wood sect master said in a low voice, "Since Feng Yang has already admitted to it, then it must be that Elder Yu Qing made some mistakes in his investigation. Luckily, Miss Feng Qing is fair and impartial and doesn't try to protect family ties. Otherwise, my True Wood sect would have wrongly accused a disciple." He looked at Zhou Li, his eyes soft. "Zhou Li, don't worry. The sect owes you for this matter and will definitely compensate you." With a single sentence, he pushed all responsibility onto Yu Qing's identity. If there was a mistake in the investigation, that was his own problem and had nothing to do with the True Wood sect. In the Grand Hall, everyone secretly breathed a sigh of relief, their faces relaxed. Even the two elders who were on good terms with Yu Qing and had worked together to resist the sect master's faction hesitated for a moment before tacitly agreeing to this. Pushing Yu Qing out was better than having the entire sect's face stripped off and thrown to the ground and trampled on. Yu Qing was so angry that his lungs nearly exploded, but he could easily sense the changes in everyone's thoughts from their expressions. After his face paled for a moment, he clenched his teeth and bowed. What the sect master says is correct. I was careless in my investigation. If he didn't admit to it, he would be standing against the entire sect. This would only make his situation even more awkward. Looking at Feng Qing, who seemed completely fine, Yu Qing still couldn't understand why she had done this. If she was truly fair and impartial, then what was the point of protecting Feng Yang in the past? I am innocent. I am innocent. Zhou Li's face suddenly streamed with tears. The more she wiped them away, the more tears flowed. Her legs buckled and she fell to the ground, crying her heart out. Her crying was like a slap to the face, causing the atmosphere in the grand hall to become awkward. The Truewood sect cultivators all had stiff expressions. Feng Qing walked in front of her and said in a soft voice, "Zhou Li, don't cry. We were in the wrong, and we almost wronged you." She patted her shoulder, her eyes flashing. You have a stubborn temper, and you don't get along with the gentle and restrained wood attribute cultivation methods of Truewood sect. Are you willing to leave with me and cultivate by my side from now on? Zhou Li didn't know Feng Qing's status, but from what happened just now, she could guess that her status was extremely high. Thinking about how she was able to obtain Qing Bai because of Feng Qing's selflessness, Zhou Li held back her tears and nodded. I am willing. She wasn't stupid. After today's events, even if no one said anything on the surface, she had already offended almost all of Truewood sect's influential figures. If she continued to stay here, she wouldn't have an easy time in the future. Since there was a better chance, she would firmly grasp it. Feng Qing smiled, satisfied with her decisiveness. She pulled Zhou Li up and said, "Don't worry. If you follow me from now on, no one will ever bully you again." Did these words mean that their Truewood sect was shameless enough to bully a little girl? There was another period of awkwardness in the hall. Luckily, Feng Qing didn't have any intention of slapping him in the face. She lightly said, "Since the matter has been resolved, let's leave it at that. If there's nothing else, I will lead them away first." As she spoke, she looked at Qinyu. Today, she had offended Truewood sect and caused the future patriarch of the Feng family to bear a bad reputation, all in order to obtain such a chance. Feng Qing ordered people to send Feng Yang back home to recuperate. Then, she used other matters as an excuse and brought Zhou Li and Qinyu in another direction. The carriage was quiet. Qinyu could sense the awkwardness between him and Zhou Li. "Cough, are you all right?" In all honesty, there was no other meaning to these words. They were only used to break the silence, but to Zhou Li, it was particularly grating. Her face flushed red and her eyes turned cold. "You don't need to worry. No matter what Zhou Li, become, it has nothing to do with you." Qinyu frowned, a bit of helplessness in his eyes. Although he knew she was overthinking things, he still nodded. "That's good." Looking at Qinyu's expression, Zhou Li's lips moved. She felt that her tone just now might have been a bit too heavy. But Qinyu's silence made it so that after experiencing such a storm, she was extremely sensitive and unwilling to explain herself. Qinyu stood up. "Rest well. I'll be leaving first." He pushed open the door. There was already someone waiting outside, leading him to another carriage. Feng Qing watched him enter the carriage. A look of understanding appeared in her eyes. Then, she pushed open the door to see Zhou Li. It was unknown what she said, but Zhou Li's mood soon recovered. She held an isotribute cultivation law formula and fell into deep thought. The carriage was extremely spacious. It was like a complete house. Although the decorations inside seemed ordinary, every part was incomparably exquisite, and the materials used were also exquisite. The incense burner burned and light smoke wafted out, filling the air with a refreshing fragrance that refreshed one's mind. Qinyu sat behind a large table, quietly brewing tea with a teapot in his hands. The excellent shock absorption allowed one to sit in the carriage without feeling the slightest jolt. Suddenly, There was a knock on the door. Qin Yu didn't look up. "Come in." With a creaking sound, the carriage opened from the outside. With its performance, it could have been silent, but this was only a reminder. Feng Qing walked forwards and respectfully bowed. "I didn't think that after such a short period of time, I would be able to see you again. It is truly my honor." Qin Yu continued to brew tea until he poured 2 cups of tea. Then, he gestured, "Miss Feng Qing, please sit." His every movement was as if he were the master of this place, calm and unruffled. Feng Qing's eyes lit up with joy. After earnestly thanking him, she sat down across from him and took a sip of tea. "To be able to drink tea personally brewed by you is enough for me to be proud." Qin Yu lightly said, "You helped Zhou Li. This is what you deserve." Offending the True Wood sect and having the infamous future head of the Feng family bear a bad reputation was actually only worth a cup of tea. But in Feng Qing's eyes, this was extremely normal. To rely on such a minor matter to obtain the approval of a divine Tao existence? This was simply the ravings of an idiot. All she wanted was a chance to speak with this mysterious sir. Qin Yu's cup of tea represented that he had already taken out this chance. Feng Qing didn't speak as she drank her tea. Qin Yu didn't urge her. After a long time, she placed down the cup and respectfully said, "I ask that you forgive me for offending you." Qin Yu said, "Speak." Feng Qing sucked in a deep breath. "If I'm not wrong, with your current condition, you should need some additional help." As she spoke, she nervously stared at Qin Yu. Qin Yu didn't comment. "Continue," Feng Qing said. "Although my cultivation isn't too high, Sky Declaring Pavilion stand behind me. I should be able to provide you with some convenience." "What makes you think I need your help?" "Your performance today is enough to show that your strength is far from being restored." Feng Qing clenched her teeth. "This world is far too dangerous. Even divine Tao powerhouses have a chance of dying. Only by recovering as soon as possible can you rest easy." A sharp light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes, like thunder cutting through the skies. Feng Qing stiffened and fear gushed out from her heart. "Facing a divine Tao, sir, wasn't my performance a bit too presumptuous?" Even if her guess was correct, it wouldn't be difficult for this sir to kill her. But this was her only chance. If she missed it, she might never encounter it again in her life. After an unknown period of time, just as Feng Qing's mind was about to collapse, Qin Yu's eyes composed themselves. He lightly said, "Your guess is correct. I am indeed facing some problems right now. If you can provide me with some help, I will give you enough in return." "Success." Feng Qing let out a long breath, a smile appearing on her pale face. "Of course. Please rest assured that I will do my best to help you recover as soon as possible." Qin Yu said, "Speak. What is your request?" "In this world, there is no free lunch." Feng Qing said in a low voice, "I hope that you can help me investigate a matter. I want to know why the true master of Sky Declaring Pavilion values me so much." Qin Yu wasn't surprised. He rapped his fingers on the table. "You suspect there is a hidden reason? What evidence do you have?" Feng Qing shook her head. "I don't. I have tried many methods, but all of them have been in vain." "But do you think that I'm only an orphan girl from a ruined family clan? Just what is so special about me that I can obtain the favor of the Master of Sky Declaring Pavilion and become his representative?" Qin Yu lightly said, "You are lying." Feng Qing's face stiffened. Qin Yu stood up. "It looks like there is no need to continue talking." Feng Qing hurriedly said, "Please calm your anger. Feng Qing knows that I was wrong. I just think that this matter is far too strange." She stood up in front of Qin Yu, a pleading look on her face. Qin Yu had no expression. "This is your last chance. If you continue to hide anything, I will forget about this matter. I will tell you everything." Feng Qing recalled, a look of fear on her face. "I clearly remember that after my 18 years of age ceremony, I would unconsciously fall asleep every night. Then I would have the same dream. In the dream, I would run through a dark forest. But no matter how fast I ran, no matter how far I ran, I could never escape the icy cold eyes that floated behind me." Her body slightly curled up and her voice trembled. Those were pale white eyes, without the least bit of color. They were like a maze, cold and lonely. From those eyes, I could feel its greed. It wanted to swallow me. Yes, it wanted to eat me. Dream? Pale white eyes? Qing Yu frowned. What does this have to do with your suspicions? Feng Qing was silent for a moment. Then, she continued to speak. The true master of Sky Declaring Pavilion is an enigma. The outside world only knows that he is a tall and thin middle-aged man, but no one has ever seen his appearance. Several years ago, at a high-level trade fair, I inadvertently learned that the master of Sky Declaring Pavilion had a title, the White-Eyed Lord. Chapter 691. From Feng Qing's expression, it could be determined that what she said was true. Qing Yu's thoughts raced. He lightly said, I agree to this request. In addition, if your performance satisfies me and the situation is within my control, I will provide you with an additional guarantee of safety. Feng Qing was overjoyed. Thank you. This was originally an additional request that she was planning to make in the future after she provided him with some help. For Qing Yu to agree on his own initiative was naturally for the best. Qing Yu said, There's no hurry to thank me. Tell me your plan first. Feng Qing's tone became even more respectful. Although I'm the manager of Sky Declaring Pavilion on the surface, the various branches have stewards, and there are also elders patrolling everywhere. I cannot do things as I please. So, the best method is for you to become a member of Sky Declaring Pavilion so that I can make arrangements for you. Qing Yu's eyes flashed. If your worries aren't false, then there should be people secretly monitoring you. Everything you do will be watched by others. Feng Qing nodded. You are right. In order to avoid being discovered by others, you will need to find a suitable turning point. She paused. Please forgive my daughter for being presumptuous, but in a situation where your cultivation is temporarily inconvenient, do you have any other abilities? Qing Yu rubbed his chin. What is the easiest way to enter Sky Declaring Pavilion? Alchemists and beast trainers. There has always been a shortage of masters in these aspects. Feng Qing revealed an awkward expression. But Sky Declaring Pavilion has extremely high requirements. You must be sufficiently outstanding. For better or worse, Qing Yu had stayed in this world for some time and had learned some things. There wasn't much to say about alchemists, but beast trainers were a profession that specialized in raising powerful monster beasts. His cultivation hadn't been restored yet, so he temporarily couldn't walk the path of alchemy. But he could disguise himself as a beast trainer, but he still had to make sure. Give me Sky Declaring Pavilion's criteria for recruiting beast trainers. Feng Qing didn't doubt him. She took out a jade slip and respectfully placed it on the table. Qing Yu's lips twitched. Just tell me. Feng Qing revealed a look of surprise. She paused for a moment and then said, Reporting to you, beast trainers that enter Sky Declaring Pavilion must be able to raise spirit food by themselves. They must control the method of raising it and ensure that the strength of the spirit beast can steadily increase. Moreover, they must complete the tasks assigned to them at each time period. If you can enter Sky Declaring Pavilion as a beast trainer, that would be for the best. This is because there are many times that materials needed to raise spirit beasts can also be used by cultivators. In terms of reporting losses and replenishing losses, I can relax the boundaries. But before she finished speaking, Qing Yu understood what she meant. The stronger a spirit beast was, the more precious the materials they could come into contact with would be, and vice versa. If one's level was ordinary, even if one could obtain materials from it, it would probably be of little value to divine Tao existences. Qing Yu had a general idea of what to do. All right, I will enter Sky Declaring Pavilion as a beast trainer. It was impossible to see her depths from her expression. Feng Qing nodded and said, Soon, Sky Declaring Pavilion will be holding a large-scale beast trainer recruitment event. Please give me your personal information and beast trainer rank, and I will help you complete the registration. She nodded. Before long, Sky Declaring Pavilion will be holding a large-scale beast trainer recruitment event. Please give me your personal information and beast trainer rank, and I will help you complete the registration. Like this, you will be entering Sky Declaring Pavilion through normal procedures and won't arouse suspicion. Feng Qing looked up, her eyes filled with surprise. Beast trainers were divided into 3 ranks: Starry Sky, Silver Moon, and Great Sunday. Each rank was divided into low, middle, and high ranks. A high Silver Moon beast trainer could be respectfully called a Grandmaster. With the strength of a divine realm existence and their long lives, it wasn't impossible for them to become a high Silver Moon beast trainer. But what did that final probably mean? Could it be that Ning Qin was still holding back and was even stronger? But she could only bury these doubts in her heart. Feng Qing was smart enough not to ask. There are still over a dozen days until the beast trainer recruitment event begins. Do you need me to make arrangements for you during this time? Qin Yu said, no need. Just give me the address and I will go there myself. Feng Qing mentioned several places where the beast trainer recruitment event would be held at the same time. Qin Yu remembered them and stood up. Miss Feng Qing, let's part ways here. He stepped out, not looking back as he said, don't let Zhou Li know about my matters. I don't want there to be any complications. Feng Qing respectfully nodded. By the time she looked up, Qin Yu had already left. Is your soul damaged so you can't use your divine sense? If this was really the case, then his injuries were far more serious than she had imagined. By the time Zhou Li learned that Qin Yu had left, it was already the evening of the next day. Was it because of her previous attitude? For such a minor matter, she had actually missed out on Miss Feng Qing. This was a person who could change her destiny. She was simply too stupid. With such a narrow mind and shrewdness, she was destined to be mediocre for the rest of her life, unable to achieve anything at all. Across from him, Feng Qing's eyes flashed. She couldn't suppress the puzzlement in her heart. Zhou Li, is he really your fiancé? Her puzzled tone had a completely different meaning in Zhou Li's ears. Her face flushed red, and she flatly denied. No, I only received his kindness in the past. Under the pressure of my family elders, I had no choice but to temporarily agree, but I absolutely will not be together with him. She didn't like such a worthless man. Ah, so that's how it is. Feng Qing said in a low voice. As she looked at Zhou Li, a strange light appeared in her eyes. With her intelligence, she soon guessed the relationship between Qin Yu and Zhou Li. It should be that the Zhou family had given him a great deal of help when he was injured. Thus he was especially taken care of. As Feng Qing thought about how a divine Tao existence was so unbearable in Zhou Li's eyes, she couldn't help but bitterly smile. She really didn't know how lucky she was. If in the future Zhou Li were to learn the truth, just what sort of expression would she have? With the speed of the purple-back blue-wing ants. Even if Qin Yu carefully hid his tracks, he would still be able to smoothly return to Depression Village in 2 days. Without accident, this would be the last time he would come here. First, he would bid farewell to the 2 old men, and second, he would have to take away the unconscious chicken overlord. As she spoke, she gestured with her hands. The old granny had an anxious expression. After Qin Yu left, she hadn't had a good night's sleep. Although the old man was also anxious, he still managed to maintain his calm demeanor. He nodded to Qin Yu and said, "You've worked hard to make this trip." He was increasingly satisfied with Qin Yu. He didn't know what had happened, but he was still willing to follow an immortal. This matter was enough to test Qin Yu's character. If Ali could really be together with this boy Qin, that would be her good fortune. Qin Yu smiled. "Old man, Granny, you don't need to worry. The immortal called me over because Ali's performance was outstanding and she was chosen by an even more formidable influence. She became the personal attendant of one of the young misses. Rest assured, this is a good thing. Ali will definitely have good prospects in the future, and she will be filial to you." The old granny let out a long breath. She pressed her palms together, and every wrinkle on her joyful face was filled with sincerity. In this world, true Buddhist Tao existed. There was once an ascetic monk who passed through Depression Village and gave the villagers the love and care of spring. From that moment on, the old granny had become a Buddhist believer. The old man was stubborn. He humphed and said, "It's not good for a girl to be too strong. It's fine if she just obediently follows the immortal and learns some skills." "What are you doing?" He waved his hand. "Let's not talk about her. Old Granny, go and kill a chicken. I will go to the village entrance and get some wine. Little boy Chin, you must have worked hard. Tonight, the two of us will have a good drink. The old granny chuckled and turned to grab chicken. Chin held down the old man and picked up the bamboo wine barrel. You wait here, I will go and get some wine. When he returned with the barrel, the old granny hadn't even started killing the chicken. As she saw Chin, she hurriedly gestured. The old man coughed and helplessly said, Old Granny said that the chicken in your room hasn't woken up for several days. It's most likely dying, so it's better to kill it while it's still alive. If it's dead, it won't taste good. Chin nearly laughed out loud. If the chicken overlord knew that it had almost been killed and stewed, its expression would surely be wonderful. He held back his laughter and made up a story. He said that the chicken had grown up together with him and that they had a deep relationship. The old granny patted Chin's shoulder in praise. The old man said with a straight face, It's just a feathered animal. Even if you have feelings for it, you shouldn't be so stubborn. The dinner was sumptuous. The old man made an exception and drank several cups of wine. His face was flushed red as he pulled Chin over and said many things. He even said that he wanted to start a family with Ali earlier and have more children. As Chin heard this, he broke out in a cold sweat. He hurriedly helped the old man back to his room to rest. For the next several days, Chin stayed at home. After the black horn sheep were transferred out, there was less work to do. He began to learn carpentry from the old man. Although the old man didn't say anything, one could tell from his smug smile that he was quite satisfied with Chin's learning speed. Later, Chin became the main force. The old man would occasionally give him pointers. He leaned back in his recliner and drank tea in satisfaction. Little boy Chin, this table and chair is very well made. In terms of carving patterns, it has already surpassed mine. It's all thanks to your good teaching, old man. Even though he knew that Chin was talking nonsense, the old man still laughed happily. Chin came over and picked up a cup of herbal tea. He finished it in one gulp. Old man, this is the last set of carpentry you have, right? The old man nodded. Yes, I can rest for a few days. Chin smiled and put down the cup. He thought about how to speak, but he underestimated the old man's insight. The old man's sudden silence made the old man frown. He moved his lips and said in a low voice, Little boy Chin, you're leaving? Chin was startled. He nodded calmly. Yes. He thought for a moment and was about to explain when he was interrupted by the old man. Say no more. Since you want to leave, you must have your own reasons. Elder Zhou exhaled. Youth is capital. It's not a bad idea to go out and explore the world while you're still young. However, you must remember that the world out there is full of sinister people. Don't put yourself in danger so easily. After all, good luck won't always be with you. Chin respectfully bowed. Thank you for the reminder, old man. I will be careful. Remember, if you feel tired one day, come back to Wali village. Whether this old woman and I are here or not, this will always be your home. There will always be a bowl of rice and a bed for you. Chin's heart warmed. Old man, I will remember your words. He didn't want to be haunted by the feeling of parting, so he joked, I will leave behind a pill. Remember to take one every month. Who knows, you might be able to live younger and give Ali another relative. You little bastard. Hurry up and scram. The next day, as the sky began to brighten, Chin walked out of the Zhou residence. He glanced at the small courtyard and then walked away without looking back. The ordinary and warm life of a mortal was a luxury to him. It was time to end it. Mr. Rong sat behind a desk, a faint smile on his face. He accepted the congratulations of his disciples, his demeanor radiant and radiant. The Dark Star Ice Serpent's sudden breakthrough had left the sect high-level figures overjoyed. They immediately blocked off news of this and prepared to give their opponents a pleasant surprise in the Beast King War 2 months from now. At the same time, Mr. Rong had been given a massive number of incomparably precious and priceless rewards. As Mr. Rong's disciples, the several youths felt honored. Moreover, the higher their teacher's status in the sect was, the more benefits they would obtain. The envious looks of the other Grandmaster Beast Trainer disciples had left them feeling proud for a long time. Mr. Rong had a calm personality. He soon calmed his mind and lifted a hand. That's enough. Now that teacher's lineage is attracting attention, you should be even more cautious in your actions. Don't get carried away and be laughed at by others. Teacher's teachings are fine. Teacher is right. We disciples will remember. We will not allow teacher's face to be damaged. Looking at his respectful disciples, Mr. Rong revealed a gratified look. They were all youths with outstanding talent. As long as they worked hard and diligently, they would surely have great achievements in the future. But at this time, he revealed a bit of surprise. Ziyue, your eyebrows are slightly furrowed. Is there something on your mind? Xiang Ziyue respectfully said, Teacher, this disciple is just puzzled. Why did the dark star ice serpent suddenly advance? According to the statistical data and its recent performance, even if everything goes smoothly, it will take at least half a year before it can complete the accumulation of strength to advance. Moreover, after the dark star ice serpent advanced, although its strength has greatly increased and all aspects of its data are within the normal range, its mind is actually quite listless, and it is currently in a deep slumber. Mr. Rong revealed a look of praise. Very good. Ziyue, you can use realistic data as a starting point and not be overwhelmed by joy. This is very rare. To tell the truth, although teacher is confident that I can help the dark star ice serpent advance, as you said, it will take time. As for this sudden advancement, there are also some areas that teacher doesn't understand. If you have the energy, you can try unraveling it and see if you can obtain any harvests. Xiang Ziyue put away the jade slip that recorded the data in her hands. She nodded and said, Very well, teacher. I will divide some of my energy into this aspect. If I obtain any harvests, I will report to you at any time. The Upper Prime Mountain Range stretched for nearly 1,000,000 miles. Although the terrain was dangerous and monster beasts frequently appeared, it was also because of this that it was rich in materials and attracted a massive number of cultivators. After a long time, hundreds of cities of different sizes rose from the ground in the mountains and forests, becoming shining pearls that decorated the dark mountains in the darkness of the night. Mid-Morning City was the largest and most dazzling of these several hundred pearls. As one of the publicly recognized strongest influences in the Upper Prime Mountain Range, Sky Declaring Pavilion would naturally set up their chess pieces in the city. Hum, hum. The low and deep humming sound quickly faded away. Not too far away from Mid-Morning City, Qin Yu calmly stepped out from a mountain. He calmly looked at the city that never slept. One of the locations that Feng Qing had left him for the beast trainer recruitment was in Mid-Morning City. But this wasn't the closest place to Depression Village. He had deliberately taken a detour to come here in order to avoid any future disasters that might occur to the Zhou family. With a thought, the flesh and blood on his face twisted, turning into a completely strange and ordinary face. Besides a pair of deep and serene eyes, this face didn't stand out at all in the crowd. After tidying himself up a bit, Qin Yu walked towards Mid-Morning City. There were only 2 days left until the date that Feng Qing had given him. After the dark star ice serpent advanced, it slept more than it woke up, and its spirit was dispirited. Luckily, this only lasted for 3 days before it returned to normal. The high-level figures of the sect let out a long breath of relief. Xiang Ziyue could almost hear the disappointed sighs of the other beast trainer grandmasters. For these past 3 days, he had been at his teacher's side, busying himself with checking on the dark star ice serpent's condition. He had been so busy that he had fallen into a deep sleep. Only now did he have some free time. After cleaning himself up and about to rest, Xiang Ziyue suddenly remembered that he had mentioned to his teacher 3 days ago that the dark star ice serpent had suddenly advanced. Should I go check it out after I wake up? After hesitating for several breaths of time, Xiang Ziyue let out a deep breath. He gathered himself and went to the study, taking out the jade slip that recorded the dark star ice serpent's data. He was well aware that his talent could only be considered above average. The reason he was able to become one of the more outstanding disciples of his teacher was because he worked harder than others. After carefully examining the data, Xiang Ziwe soon immersed himself in it, as if he didn't feel tired at all. He waited until the moon was high in the sky before he looked up from the massive amount of data. He subconsciously frowned. There wasn't anything different. Everything seemed normal, but this normalcy made Xiang Ziwe feel that something was wrong. If there wasn't any external interference, how could the dark star ice serpent suddenly advance? Although it was possible for a bloodline mutation to occur, the chances were far too small. Moreover, after the dark star ice serpent reached adulthood, it had already opened a bloodline promotion ritual. The chances of another mutation were nearly zero. Just what is wrong? Xiang Ziwe took a deep breath. He buried his head back into the data, trying to find the crux of the vast and complex records. After an unknown period of time, a simple and informal record fell into his eyes. This was a record made by the apprentice beast trainer that took care of the Dark Star Ice Serpent. This record contained information on the changes in the Dark Star Ice Serpent's blood vitality fluctuations. This record itself wasn't too valuable. In addition, another disciple of his teacher had already reviewed it and placed it into a file. Xiang Ziwe had only skimmed through it before. If it weren't for the Dark Star Ice Serpent's sudden advancement arousing suspicion, he feared it would never be looked through again. But now, this set of data was like a spark in the dark night, illuminating the darkness and confusion in Xiang Ziwe's heart. He immediately found other similar data records. After carefully extracting them, he was finally able to mark a simple diagram of the changes in the Dark Star Ice Serpent's blood vitality fluctuations before it advanced. This slightly raised curve caused Xiang Ziwe's breathing to become heavier. But this alone wasn't enough. He needed more evidence. Xiang Ziwe hurriedly gathered up the extracted data and pushed open the door. In the hazy darkness of the early morning, he stepped into the sect's treasury department. Here was the detailed data on the Dark Star Ice Serpent's meals. Xiang Ziwe was well aware that no one else had approached the Dark Star Ice Serpent during this period of time. If so, then its advancement must be related to something it ate. With the data diagram, he quickly found the items the Dark Star Ice Serpent ate. In order to avoid any accidents and also to record the data, the sect's high-level spirit beasts 8 records were extremely important, and they were kept in an extremely complete state. Some of the more important items would be kept as samples. Only after the spirit beasts had eaten them would they be used again. This was to prevent the spirit beasts that the sect raised with great effort from being poisoned by hostile influences. Similar incidents had occurred many times in these past years. Xiang Ziwe arrived just in time. The preserved items hadn't been taken away yet. After comparing them to the ordinary materials and not finding anything, he turned his attention to this. 2 hours later, Xiang Ziwe looked at a light gray leaf in his hand. Its surface was covered with some sort of silver-white lines. Xiang Ziwe's eyes widened in disbelief. He was stunned for a moment. Then, he jumped up and knocked over a table. But he didn't seem to notice anything as he rushed out of the treasury department. TSK, did you see? These lore beast trainers are usually a bit crazy. From now on, be good and stay far away from them. The old cultivator guarding the door had an experienced look on his face. The several young cultivators around him nodded. Qin Yu asked around and soon found where Sky Declaring Pavilion was located. The recruitment of a beast trainer was a major event, and there were special personnel to receive them. Mister, may I ask if you have already signed up? If you have, please inform us of your personal information. The female cultivator behind the counter smiled sweetly. Ning Qin. The female cultivator quickly looked up the information. Her mouth fell open as she hurriedly stood up. She respectfully said, "So, it is Grandmaster Ning Qin. Your initial examination has passed, and you may directly enter the final examination." The surroundings fell silent. Many people looked at him in astonishment before revealing awe. No one dared to tamper with their information. Sky Declaring Pavilion would also make a simple judgment, so there was no way to hide it. Without a doubt, this common-looking youth in front of them was a genuine beast trainer grandmaster. He hadn't thought of this, but with Feng Qing's status, it wasn't difficult for her to accomplish this. Qin Yu calmly nodded. The female cultivator handed over a black jade card. Grandmaster Ning Qin, your final examination time, location, and requirements are all written within. If you have any questions, you may come and ask them at any time. Then, she handed over a card. Because of your honored status, Sky Declaring Pavilion has already booked the best guest room in the city's beckoning moon court for you. This is the room card. Please accept it. All expenses incurred during the examination may be recorded on this card. Thank you. After receiving the final examination jade card and letting go, Qin Yu left in front of everyone. Grandmaster Rong looked down at the recorded data, his fingers trembling. After a long time, he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. Ziyue, if your data isn't wrong, we should be able to find key material evidence in the treasury. Xiang Ziyue glanced at her teacher. She clenched her teeth and took out a blade of grass. Teacher, I have already gone to the treasury and found the leaf of this ash threadgrass. Ash threadgrass. Grandmaster Rong took the leaf in his hand. By relying on his sharp senses as a beast trainer, he immediately sensed that this seemingly ordinary ash threadgrass leaf contained some sort of unusual strength. He stood up and brought the ash threadgrass leaf to the research room. After a moment, he looked at the data he obtained and shock filled his face. In order to ensure that the data was accurate, he immediately carried out 2 more identical experiments. The data he obtained was nearly the same. To think that such an amazingly effective ash thread grass exists in this world. The one who cultivated it must be a true Grandmaster-level existence. Grandmaster Rong looked up, his voice resolute and decisive. Report to the sect. We must find this Grandmaster, no matter the cost. Chapter 691. The discovered ash thread grass. From Feng Qing's expression, it could be determined that what she said was true. Qin Yu's thoughts raced. He lightly said, I agree to this request. In addition, if your performance satisfies me and the situation is within my control, I will provide you with an additional guarantee of safety. Feng Qing was overjoyed. Thank you. This was originally an additional request that she was planning to make in the future after she provided him with some help. For Qin Yu to agree on his own initiative was naturally for the best. Qin Yu said, There's no hurry to thank me. Tell me your plan first. Feng Qing's tone became even more respectful. Although I am the manager of Sky Declaring Pavilion on the surface, the various branches have stewards, and there are also elders patrolling everywhere. I cannot do things as I please. So, the best method is for you to become a member of Sky Declaring Pavilion so that I can make arrangements for you. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. If your worries aren't wrong, then there should be people secretly monitoring you. Everything you do will be watched by others. Feng Qing nodded. What you say is correct. In order to avoid being discovered by others, we will need to find a suitable turning point. She paused for a moment. Please forgive my daughter for being presumptuous. In a situation where your cultivation is temporarily inconvenient, do you have any other abilities? Qin Yu rubbed his chin. What is the easiest way to enter Sky Declaring Pavilion? Alchemists and beast trainers. There has always been a shortage of masters in these aspects. Feng Qing revealed an awkward expression. But Sky Declaring Pavilion has extremely high requirements. You must be sufficiently outstanding. For better or worse, Qin Yu had stayed in this world for some time and had learned some things. There wasn't much to say about alchemists, but beast trainers were a profession that specialized in raising powerful monster beasts. His cultivation hadn't been restored yet, so he couldn't walk down the path of alchemy for the time being. But he could disguise himself as a beast trainer, but he still had to make sure. Give me Sky Declaring Pavilion's criteria for recruiting beast trainers. Feng Qing didn't doubt him. She took out a jade slip and respectfully placed it on the table. Qin Yu's lips twitched. Just tell me. Feng Qing revealed a look of surprise. She paused for a moment and then said, Reporting to you, beast trainers that enter Sky Declaring Pavilion must be able to raise spirit food by themselves. They must control the method of raising them and ensure that the strength of the spirit beasts can steadily increase. Moreover, they must complete the tasks assigned to them at each time. If you can enter Sky Declaring Pavilion as a beast trainer, that would be for the best. This is because many times the materials needed to raise spirit beasts can also be used by cultivators. In terms of reporting losses and replenishing losses, I can relax the boundaries. It's just that, before she finished speaking, Chinyu already understood what she meant. The stronger the spirit beast was, the more precious the materials they could come into contact with would be, and vice versa. If one's level was average, then even if they could obtain materials, they might still be of little value to a divine Tao existence. Chinyu had a general idea of what to do. All right, I will enter Sky Declaring Pavilion as a beast trainer. It was impossible to see how deep his thoughts were from his expression. Fengqing nodded. Soon, Sky Declaring Pavilion will be holding a large-scale beast trainer recruitment event. Please give me your personal information and beast trainer rank, and I will help you complete the registration. Like this, you will be entering Sky Declaring Pavilion through the normal procedures and won't arouse any suspicion. My name is Ning Qin, Blue Sea Realm Cultivation. Beast Trainer rank, High Silver Moon. Fengqing looked up, her eyes filled with surprise. Beast trainers were divided into 3 ranks: Starry Sky, Silver Moon, and Great Sunday. Each rank was divided into low, middle, and high ranks. A High Silver Moon beast trainer could be respectfully called a Grandmaster. With the formidable strength of a divine Tao existence and their long lifespans, it wasn't impossible for them to become a High Silver Moon beast trainer. But what did that final probably mean? Could it be that Ning Qin was still holding back? Could he be even stronger? But she could only bury these doubts in her heart. Fengqing was smart enough not to ask. There are still over a dozen days until the beast trainer recruitment event begins. Do you need me to make arrangements for you during this time? Chinyu said, no need. Just give me the address and I will go there myself. Fengqing mentioned several places where the beast trainer recruitment event would be held at the same time. Chinyu memorized them and stood up. Miss Fengqing, let's part ways here. He stepped out, not looking back as he said, do not let Jolie know about my matters. I don't want any side issues to crop up. Fengqing respectfully nodded. When she looked up, Chinyu had already left. Is your soul damaged so you can't use your divine sense? If this was really the case, then his injuries were far more serious than she had imagined. By the time Jolie learned that Chinyu had left, it was already the evening of the next day. Was it because of his previous attitude? For such a minor matter, he had actually missed out on Miss Fengqing. This was a person who could change his destiny, a person who was so incredibly stupid. With such a narrow mind and shrewdness, he was destined to live a mediocre life. It would be difficult for him to achieve anything. Across from him, Fengqing's eyes flashed. In the end, she wasn't able to suppress the puzzlement in her heart. Jolie, is he really your fiancé? Her puzzled tone had a completely different meaning in Jolie's ears. Her face flushed red, and she flatly denied. He isn't. I only received his graciousness in the past. Under the pressure of my family's elders, I had no choice but to temporarily agree, but I absolutely will not be together with him. She didn't like such a worthless man. Ah, so that's how it is, Fengqing whispered. She looked at Jolie, a strange light in her eyes. With her intelligence, she soon guessed the relationship between Chinyu and Jolie. It should be because the Zhou family had given him a great deal of help when he was injured, so this was the reason he was especially taken care of. As Fengqing thought about how a divine Tao existence was so unbearable in Jolie's eyes, she couldn't help but bitterly smile. She really didn't know how lucky she was. If in the future Jolie learned the truth, just what sort of expression would he have? With the speed of the purple-back blue-wing ants, even if Chinyu carefully hid his tracks, he would still be able to smoothly return to Depression Village in 2 days. Without accident, this would be the last time he would come here. First, he would bid farewell to the 2 old men, and second, he would have to take away the unconscious chicken overlord. As she spoke, she gestured with her hands. The granny had an anxious expression. After Chinyu left, she hadn't had a good night's sleep. Although the old man was anxious, he still managed to maintain his calm demeanor. He nodded at Chinyu and said, "It's been hard on you to make this trip." He was increasingly satisfied with Chinyu. He didn't know what had happened, but he was still willing to follow an immortal. This matter was enough to test Chinyu's character. If Ali could really be together with this boy Chin, that would be her good fortune. Chinyu smiled. "Old man, Granny, you don't need to worry. The reason the immortal called me over is because Ali's performance was outstanding and she was chosen by an even more formidable influence. She became the personal attendant of one of the young misses. Rest assured, this is a good thing. Ali will definitely have good prospects in the future, and she will be filial to you." The granny let out a long breath and clasped her hands together. On her joyful face, every wrinkle was filled with sincerity. There was true Buddhism in this world. There was once an ascetic who passed by Wali village and gave the villagers the care and help of spring. From then on, the granny became a Buddhist believer. The old man was stubborn. He snorted and said, "It's not good for a girl to be too headstrong. She should just obediently follow the immortal and learn some skills. What's the point of messing around?" He waved his hand. "Let's not talk about her. Old woman, go and kill a chicken. I'll go to the village entrance to get some wine. Little Chin, you've worked hard. Let's have a good drink tonight." The granny agreed with a smile and turned to grab the chicken. Chin pressed down on the old man and picked up the bamboo wine tube. "Wait here, I'll go get some wine." When he returned with the bamboo barrel, the granny hadn't even started killing the chicken. When she saw Chin, she quickly gestured with her hands. The old man coughed. He helplessly said, "Old woman said that the chicken in your room hasn't woken up for several days. It's most likely on the verge of death. You might as well kill it while it's still alive and eat its meat. If it's dead, it won't taste good." Chin nearly laughed out loud. If the chicken overlord knew that it had almost been killed and stewed, its expression would surely be wonderful. He held back his laughter and made up a story. He said that the chicken had grown up together with him and that they had a deep relationship. The granny patted Chin's shoulder in praise. The old man said with a straight face, "It's just a feathered animal. Even if you have feelings, you shouldn't be so stubborn." The dinner was very sumptuous. The old man made an exception and drank several cups. His face was flushed red as he pulled Chinyu over and said many things. He even said that he wanted to start a family with Ali and have a few more children. Hearing this, Chinyu broke out in a cold sweat. He hurriedly helped the old man back to his room to rest. For the next few days, Chinyu stayed at home. After the black-horned sheep were transferred out, there was less work to do. He learned carpentry from the old man. Although Old Man Zhou didn't say anything, one could tell from his smug smile that he was quite satisfied with Chinyu's learning speed. Afterwards, Chinyu became the main force. Old Man Zhou would occasionally give him pointers. He reclined in his chair and drank tea, feeling quite content. "Brat Chin, these tables and chairs are very well made. In terms of carving patterns, they have already surpassed me. This is all because of the good teachings of the old man." Even though Old Man Zhou knew that Chinyu was speaking nonsense, he still laughed heartily. Chinyu walked over and picked up a cup of herbal tea, drinking it in one gulp. "Old man, is this the last set of carpentry that you have?" The old man nodded. "Yes, I can rest for several days." Chinyu smiled as he laid down the teacup. He thought about how to speak, but he had underestimated this old man's insight. His sudden silence caused Old Man Zhou to frown. His lips moved, and he said in a low voice, "Brat Chin, you want to leave?" Chinyu was startled. He immediately nodded. "Yes." He thought for a moment and was about to explain when he was interrupted by the old man. "There's no need to say more. Since you want to leave, you must have your own reasons." Old Man Zhou sighed. "Youth is capital. Taking advantage of your youth, it's not a bad idea to go out and explore the world. But you must remember that the outside world is full of evil people. Don't put yourself in danger easily. After all, good luck won't always be by your side." Chinyu bowed respectfully. "Thank you for the reminder, old man. I will definitely be more careful. Remember, if you feel tired one day, come back to Wali village. Whether this old woman and I are here or not, this will always be your home. There will always be a bowl of rice and a bed for you. Qin Yu's heart warmed. Old man, I will remember your words. Not wanting to be haunted by the emotions of parting, he joked, I will leave behind a pill. Remember to take one every month. Who knows, you might become younger and give Ali another relative. You brat. Scram. The next day, as the skies began to brighten, Qin Yu left the Zhou family. He glanced at the small courtyard and then left without looking back. To him, the simple and warm life of a mortal was a luxury. It was time to end it. Mr. Rong sat behind a desk, a faint smile on his face. He accepted the congratulations of his disciples, his demeanor radiant and radiant. The Dark Star Ice Serpent's sudden breakthrough had left the sect's high-level figures overjoyed. They immediately blocked off news of this and prepared to give their opponents a pleasant surprise in the Beast King War 2 months from now. At the same time, Mr. Rong had been given a massive number of incomparably precious and priceless rewards. As Mr. Rong's disciples, the several youths felt honored. Moreover, the higher their teacher's status in the sect was, the more benefits they would obtain. Today, the other Grandmaster Beast Trainer disciples had envious looks on their faces, causing them to feel proud for a long time. Mr. Rong had a calm personality. He quickly composed himself and lifted a hand. That's enough. Now that my lineage is attracting attention, you should be even more cautious in your actions. Don't forget yourself and be laughed at by others. It doesn't matter if I teach you. Teacher is right. We disciples will remember. We will not allow teacher's face to be damaged. Looking at his respectful disciples, Mr. Rong revealed a gratified look. They were all youths with outstanding talent. As long as they worked hard and diligently, they would surely have great achievements in the future. But at this time, he revealed a bit of surprise. Ziyue, your eyebrows are slightly furrowed. Is there something on your mind? Xiang Ziyue respectfully said, Teacher, this disciple is just puzzled. Why did the Dark Star Ice Serpent suddenly advance? According to the statistical data and its recent performance, even if everything goes smoothly, it will still take at least half a year before it can complete the accumulation of strength to advance. Moreover, after the Dark Star Ice Serpent advanced, although its strength has greatly increased and all aspects of its data are within the normal range, its spirit is actually a bit sluggish, and it is still in a deep slumber. Mr. Rong revealed a look of praise. Very good, Ziyue. You were able to use realistic data as a starting point and not be overwhelmed by joy. This is very rare. To tell the truth, although I am confident that I can help the Dark Star Ice Serpent advance, as you said, it will take time. As for this sudden advancement, there are also some areas that I don't understand. If you have the energy, you can try to unravel it and see if you can obtain any harvests. Xiang Ziyue put away the jade slip that recorded the data in her hands. She nodded and said, Very well, teacher. I will divert some of my energy into this aspect. If I have any harvests, I will report to you at any time. The Upper Prime Mountain Range stretched for nearly 1,000,000 miles. Although the terrain was dangerous and monster beasts frequently appeared, it was also because of this that it contained rich resources that a massive number of cultivators were attracted to it. After a long time, hundreds of cities of different sizes rose from the ground in the mountains and forests, becoming shining pearls that decorated the dark mountains in the darkness of the night. Amongst these several hundred pearls, Mid-Morning City was the largest and most dazzling one. As one of the publicly recognized strongest influences in the Upper Prime Mountain Range, Sky Declaring Pavilion naturally placed their chess pieces in the city. Hum, hum. The low and deep humming sound quickly faded away. In a mountain not too far away from Mid-Morning City, Qin Yu walked out with steady steps. He calmly looked at the city that never slept. One of the locations that Feng Qing had given him for the beast trainer recruitment was in Mid-Morning City. But this wasn't the closest place to Depression Village. He had deliberately taken a long detour to come here in order to avoid any future disasters that might occur to the Zhou family. With a thought, the flesh and blood on his face twisted, turning into a completely strange and ordinary face. Besides a pair of deep and serene eyes, this face didn't stand out at all in the crowd. After tidying himself up a bit, Qin Yu walked towards mid-morning city. There were only 2 days left until the date that Feng Qing had given him for the recruitment. After the Dark Star Ice Serpent advanced, it slept more than it woke up, and its spirit was dispirited. Luckily, this only lasted for 3 days before it returned to normal. The high-level figures of the sect let out a long sigh of relief. Xiang Ziyue could almost hear the disappointed sighs of the other beast trainer grandmasters. For these past 3 days, he had been at his teacher's side, busying himself with checking on the Dark Star Ice Serpent's condition. He had been so busy that he had lost his mind. It was only now that he had some free time. After cleaning himself up and about to rest, Xiang Ziyue suddenly remembered that he had mentioned to his teacher 3 days ago that the Dark Star Ice Serpent had suddenly advanced. Should I go check it out after I wake up? After hesitating for several breaths of time, Xiang Ziyue let out a deep breath. He gathered himself and went to the study, taking out the jade slip that recorded the Dark Star Ice Serpent's data. He was well aware that his martial talent was only above average. The reason he was able to become one of the more outstanding disciples of his teacher was because he worked harder than others. After carefully examining the data, Xiang Ziyue soon immersed himself in it, as if he didn't feel tired at all. It was only when the moon hung high in the sky that he looked up from the massive amount of data. He subconsciously frowned. There wasn't anything different. Everything seemed normal. But this normalcy made Xiang Ziyue feel that something was wrong. If there wasn't any external interference, how could the Dark Star Ice Serpent suddenly advance? Although it was possible for a bloodline mutation to occur, the chances were far too small. Moreover, after the Dark Star Ice Serpent reached adulthood, it had already opened a bloodline promotion ritual. The chances of another mutation were nearly zero. Just what is wrong? Xiang Ziyue took a deep breath and immersed himself in the data once more. He tried to find the crux of the vast and complex records. After an unknown period of time, a simple and informal record fell into his eyes. This was a record made by the apprentice beast trainer that took care of the Dark Star Ice Serpent. This record contained information on the changes in the Dark Star Ice Serpent's blood vitality fluctuations. This record itself wasn't too valuable. In addition, it had already been reviewed by another disciple of his teacher and placed into a file. Xiang Ziyue had only skimmed through it before. If it weren't for the Dark Star Ice Serpent's sudden advancement arousing suspicions, this record might never have been looked through again. But now, this set of data was like a spark in the dark night, illuminating the darkness and confusion in Xiang Ziyue's heart. He immediately found other similar data records. After carefully extracting them, he was finally able to mark a simple diagram of the changes in the Dark Star Ice Serpent's blood vitality fluctuations before it advanced. This slight curve caused Xiang Ziyue's breath to quicken. But this alone wasn't enough. He needed more evidence. Xiang Ziyue hurriedly gathered up the extracted data and pushed open the door. Against the hazy darkness of the early morning, he stepped into the sect's treasury department. Here was the detailed data on what the Dark Star Ice Serpent had eaten. Xiang Ziyue was well aware that no one else had approached the Dark Star Ice Serpent during this time. If so, then its advancement must be related to something it had eaten. With the data diagram, he quickly found the items that the Dark Star Ice Serpent had eaten. In order to avoid any accidents and also to record the data, the sect's high-level spirit beasts' feeding records were extremely important, and they were kept in an extremely complete state. Some of the more important items would be kept as samples. Only after it was determined that the spirit beasts hadn't eaten anything wrong would they be used again. This was to prevent the spirit beasts that the sect had painstakingly raised from being poisoned and murdered by hostile influences. Similar incidents had occurred many times in these past years. Xiang Ziyue arrived just in time. The items that had been kept as samples hadn't been taken away yet. After comparing them to the ordinary materials and not finding anything, he turned his attention to this place. 2 hours later, Xiang Ziwa looked at a light gray leaf in his hand. Its surface was covered with some sort of silver white lines. Xiang Ziyue's eyes widened in disbelief. He was stunned for a moment. Then, he jumped up and knocked over a table. But he didn't seem to notice this at all. He rushed out of the warehouse. TSK, did you see? These lore beast trainers are usually a bit crazy. From now on, be good and stay far away from them. The old cultivator guarding the door had an experienced look on his face. The several young cultivators around him nodded. Qin asked around and found where Sky Declaring Pavilion was located. The recruitment of a beast trainer was a major event, and there were specialized personnel there to receive them. Mister, may I ask if you have already registered? If you have, please inform us of your personal information. The female cultivator behind the counter smiled sweetly. Ning Qin. The female cultivator quickly looked up the information. Her mouth fell open, and she quickly stood up. She respectfully said, "So, it is Grandmaster Ning Qin. Your initial examination has passed, and you may directly enter the final examination." The surroundings fell silent. Many people looked at him in astonishment before revealing awe. No one dared to tamper with their information. Sky Declaring Pavilion would also make a simple judgment, so there was no way to hide it. Without a doubt, this common-looking youth in front of them was a genuine beast trainer grandmaster. He hadn't thought of this, but with Feng Qing's status, it wasn't difficult for her to accomplish this. Qin Yu calmly nodded. The female cultivator handed over a black jade card. Grandmaster Ning Qin, your final examination time, location, and requirements are all written within. If you have any questions, you can come and ask them at any time. Then, she handed over a card. Because of your honored status, Sky Declaring Pavilion has already booked the best guest room in the city's beckoning moon court for you. This is the room card. Please accept it. All expenses incurred during the examination may be recorded on this card. Thank you. After receiving the final examination jade card and letting go, Qin Yu left in front of everyone. Grandmaster Rong looked down at the recorded data. His fingers trembled. After a long time, he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. Ziyue, if your data isn't wrong, we should be able to find key material evidence in the warehouse. Xiang Ziyue glanced at her teacher. She clenched her teeth and took out a blade of grass. Teacher, I have already gone to the warehouse and found the leaf of this ash threadgrass. Ash threadgrass. Grandmaster Roan took the leaf in his hand. By relying on his sharp senses as a beast trainer, he immediately sensed that this seemingly ordinary ash threadgrass leaf contained some sort of unusual strength. He stood up and brought the ash threadgrass leaf to the research room. After a moment, he looked at the data he obtained, and his face filled with shock. In order to ensure that the data was accurate, he immediately carried out 2 more identical experiments. The data he obtained was nearly the same. To think that such an astonishing ash thread grass exists in this world. The one who cultivated it must be a true Grandmaster level existence. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.